said you don't like Polish people and you don't trust them.
That's not what I said.
Yes, that's what you said.
No. You must have misheard me. I like Polish people a lot.
Christ me, I never heard of this from you. I've heard this on the radio.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. You want to have a listen? Have a listen to what I said. Okay. Listen to this.
Yes.
I don't like Poles. I wasn't talking about Polish people.
Yes.
I was talking about polls. You know, when you do a poll to find out what people think. You know, like they say 55% of people vote Remain, 45% vote Leave. That's a poll. I wasn't talking about...
but later on you said you don't trust them, so you don't...
I don't trust them. No, that's true. I don't trust Poles, and I don't like Poles because I don't trust them. But that's not Polish people.
No, that's what I thought. That's what I pick up.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Listen, well, I would never say anything like that.
No, so in this case, I never learned English.
No, listen, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I'm very glad you called in because I wouldn't want you walking around thinking that Mike Graham is a horrible bigot. He doesn't like Polish people.
No, I was thinking, what the hell? What's going on here? Actually, I must be back and explain a few things.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, a very good morning to you just after 6 o'clock on Sunday, April the 20th. First of all, happy Easter to you or wherever you are celebrating this great day. Also, I just want to say happy birthday to Gabriella, my setup producer, who turns 22 today. Very happy birthday to you. No, I'm lying, actually. She's 23. Anyway, great news this morning is, of course, it's Easter Sunday today. It's the most important festival in the Christian calendar. It celebrates Jesus rising from the dead 3 days after his crucifixion.
Happy Easter to you.
Well, thank you very much. It's the Peter Lee World Egg Jarping competition today. That's right, it's a competition to see whose boiled egg is the hardest by tapping them all together until one breaks. It's now practiced all over the world, but the championship did actually start in Peterlee in County Durham.
Egg surprise, what's inside? Let's see. Egg surprise, let's shake it out.
Egg surprise. Also today, by the way, it's Look-alike Day today. It's a day that celebrates people who look like you. So keep a beady eye out today for your doppelganger.
I saw someone who looked like you at our favorite coffee shop.
Right, on that note, let's move on to this morning's Fascinating Facts.
Today's fascinating facts.
So this hour's Fascinating Facts. On this day in 1653, Oliver Cromwell dissolved the Rump Parliament. It had followed the Long Parliament that had governed during the Civil War. Now, Oliver Cromwell actually lived in Ely in Cambridgeshire. I didn't know that. He lived there from 1636 to 1646. On this day in 1657, the Spanish fleet was destroyed in the battle at Santa Cruz by an English fleet commanded by Admiral Blake. And on this day in 1879, the first mobile home, which was horse-drawn, by the way, was used in the journey from London to Cyprus on this very day in 1879. And those are this hour's Fascinating Facts.
Wake up, it's Easter time. David and Charlie feeling so fine. Breakfast is ready, let's toast and cheer. Join us together, bring on the year.
Bring on the year. A very good morning to you. Happy Easter Sunday to you, wherever you are celebrating today. Of course, a really important event in the Christian calendar. Well, I'm delighted to say that obviously Easter is a time of celebration of all sorts of things, but also celebrating the religious story, but also Easter eggs. And it wouldn't be complete without an Easter bunny. And I brought my very own Easter bunny with me this morning. Charlie Rowley, political commentator. Good morning.
Good morning.
Why are you so sad?
I'm thrilled to be here.
Do you think I oversold it to you?
Well, I feel as though I might have been had. You know, when somebody tells you it's a sort of, a costume party,
Yeah.
and you're the only one that turns up in a
Yes, like
costume.
that. So this morning I didn't have ears on.
No. But you've helped me out. You've done well.
I'd like to say thanks to Dave, Tech Op Dave.
Quite right, too.
Yes, because
Quite right, too.
he lent me his hat.
Yes.
He's got the most extraordinary fancy dress sort of equipment.
Has he?
Yes.
Well, he looks the type. He looks
He does know the time. Anyway, so today, I was just saying, by the way, it's Lookalike Day today, a day celebrating those people who look like you, a doppelganger. Now, a doppelganger, which is spelt a number of ways, by the way, is a ghostly double of a living person, especially one that haunts its own fleshy counterpart. The doppelganger is often portrayed as a ghostly or paranormal phenomenon and is usually seen as a harbinger of bad luck, apparently. Other traditions and stories equate a doppelganger with an evil twin. So there you go.
Well, there
Do you have one?
it. I don't know. Not that I'm aware
not
of.
that
But
you're
I'll
aware of.
I'll keep my eyes peeled, as you say.
Well, so it comes from the German noun doppelganger, literally means double walker. The single and plural forms are the same in German, but English writers prefer the plural of doppelgangers. So in Germany, it would be doppelganger, but
Just like that.
just like doppelganger. But here in England, it is doppelgangers.
Well,
Yeah. In German, there's also a feminine form, the doppelgangerin.
gosh.
You see, you're learning all sorts of things this morning. The first known use of doppelganger occurs in Siebenkas in 1796.
Well,
I've
who
now
knew?
offended every single German speaker.
Thank you. They've all switched off. If they hadn't already
Well,
switched
it was
on.
also mentioned in the Catherine Crowe's book on paranormal phenomena, The Night Side of Nature in 1848. Also, I'm just going to give you another fact here. Isaac Walton claimed that John Donne, the English metaphysical poet, saw his wife's doppelganger in 1612 in Paris on the same night as the stillbirth of their daughter. This account first appears in the edition of The Life of Dr. Ris van Rissing, published in 1675. So if you see a doppelganger, then it's bad luck. And apparently they found a doppelganger of me, which I know isn't going to be very flattering, is it? That is not very flattering. That looks nothing like me, does it? I actually... What do you think?
Oh, it's uncanny. And £8.99, I think, is attached to that. Which
Well,
I think
the price point is valid, I would say.
Yeah, it is. You're not cheap.
I'm definitely not cheap. No. So there you are, Charlie. You've learned all about doppelgangers.
I have, but I do actually believe that there is someone
Yeah.
that looks identical to you somewhere else, but there'll be at the other side
Dressed
of the
in
world
bunny
somewhere. Today there'll be another David Ball, there'll be another Charlie Rayleigh sitting around, maybe not a radio studio or TV studio, but they'll be doing something. But I think that there is someone that looks identical to you.
Well,
somewhere
that's
across the
really
world.
interesting. And I suppose with the advent of DNA technology, 21andMe and all that kind of stuff, that actually because you're dealing with the changes to the DNA code and actually the tiny fragments of the DNA code, you're probably right. So I don't know, are there infinitesimal probabilities of the way that our phenotype looks, so how we look? Or is it that that actually, because of the mathematical computations, that actually you will find someone who looks vaguely or similarly to you?
Well, I think it could be all of those things, but I also think, it might be a bit far-fetched, but if there is other life on other planets, which I think was almost discovered a couple of days ago, there's a new planet that's
amazing.
And I do think that there'll be human life on another planet, and we could look exactly like them.
Yeah, it's extraordinary, actually. That's the stuff of my childhood dreams, actually. I was obsessed with science fiction, with things like Islands in the Sky, all that, Arthur C. Clarke and so on. And so to then be a grown-up and actually see some of these discoveries, I find absolutely amazing. Anyway, there we are. Also, happy Easter. I've got some Postbox toppers for you because a show here wouldn't be complete without a Postbox toppers. And I know Ted, the producer, is absolutely thrilled that we've got those back. He hates them. And there we are. Happy Easter. Thank you very much indeed for this from Gerald Austin, as you can see. So for those of you listening on radio, these are amazing works of art which have been created by ladies and gentlemen around the country, adorning the post boxes around the country. So you can see there, there's a, what's that? There's a hen with some chicks and eggs, and just brightening up Britain's streets. And I mean, they're really talented to make those things. And actually, this all started a couple of years ago with Christmas, and we had the Postbox toppers for Christmas, and we saw the Three Kings, and now it's obviously Easter time.
Yes, and I think, I remember certain Jubilee celebrations.
Yes,
people
that's
did
right.
it, and
the coronation.
And the coronation, and Remembrance Sundays, and all the rest, poppies. Excuse me, people sort of knitting poppies and all kinds of things. I think it's wonderful.
I
think
do
it's just,
too, actually.
Because it just gives you that whole sense of local community again, and people
agree.
doing something to brighten up their... most people, communities go out and do a litter pick or something like that, but to actually dress something up, to add, just for the occasion, I think it's a nice thing to do.
I do too. Gerald, thank you ever so much for that. I know you've sent me some more this morning, so I'm trying to get those that I can show you a little later on. I'm going to take my ears off now because this is very serious. If you are just waking up, let's look at the front pages this morning. This is the Sunday Telegraph. I think this kind of sums it up. Zelensky, Putin shatters the own truce. Vladimir Zelensky is accused Moscow of failing to uphold an Easter truce, which was announced by Vladimir Putin. This all happened last night, actually. Ukraine's president said his forces would abide by the ceasefire if the Kremlin did the same, but said Russian artillery fire did not stop, and it also attempted to seize territory as well. So what happened yesterday, just bringing you up to speed, President Putin announced there would be an Easter truce in Ukraine. This was yesterday. And you can imagine that was met with some scepticism in Kyiv. So the Russian leader, Putin, hailed a 30-hour ceasefire. He said this is to respect the Easter holidays. It would come into effect yesterday night. So this would have come in, I think, from... certainly from sort of 4 o'clock, I think it was our time. Yeah, 4 p.m. our time. Now, what transpired then? It soon bore no relation to life on the ground. After that started at 8 p.m. our time, air raid sirens then rang out in Kyiv, and then the Russian offensive actions continued in points along the 800-mile front line. Now, Charlie, just in terms of that, Putin says one thing, and actually he could have captured that moral high ground by saying we will have a truce over Easter, over a religious period. But of course he hadn't, my interpretation of this, either he hasn't got control of his troops or he had no intention of carrying that through.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was the latter, given his past and the behaviour. But I think it's all part of the psychological warfare as well, sort of trying to appear to be maybe appeasing Donald Trump, or to say that, look, actually Donald Trump's negotiations are working, and therefore we're going to have a ceasefire, and he's going to take, as you say, that higher ground to call a ceasefire over a religious period. And then, if it doesn't transpire to be so, or, if people draw breath or a sigh of relief in Ukraine to think, right, OK, at least we've got a bit of a truce, and at least during these next sort of 30 hours we can all get together as a family again, or we can celebrate Easter, or we can have a bit of respite, and then the sirens go off. It's it's incredibly damaging. It's the psychological warfare as well as the actual physical bombing that's taking place.
So I think there are a lot of moving parts to this. Now, if you remember, in March, Zelensky said that Kyiv would agree to a 30-day immediate ceasefire. So here we are. Putin says 30 hours. Kyiv is saying 30 days, and then Putin rejected that. If you remember, going back to the 19th of March, he agreed to a 30-day pause in attacks only on energy and infrastructure. He then demanded Ukraine be banned from rearming or mobilising during that partial truce, and he also said he wanted a complete cessation of Western military intelligence support. I'm just wondering how much Putin is playing Trump. Because, of course, we saw J.D. Vance, didn't we, yesterday, saying, hang on a minute, look, either there's a deal or we're out. We've got other things that we want to concentrate on.
Yeah, I think that's right. And Donald Trump sent his sort of negotiator, who used to be a property, I've forgotten his name now. But
That's right.
He's the one that went to visit sort of President Putin, and basically they took him for a ride. He arrived early on in the day. They then sort of put him in a shuttle bus and showed him sort of Moscow, gave him a sightseeing tour of the city. They then didn't meet for talks until about sort of 3 or 4 hours later in the afternoon. So there is a lot of stalling going on behalf of Russia and Putin's Russia. And I think there comes a point where, and Donald Trump has, I think, expressed a little bit of frustration with Putin as well in the sidelines. Obviously not as vocally or as publicly as he has President Zelensky. Obviously, he thinks Zelensky's handled it, or thought that there was obviously a deal when Zelensky came to the White House.
But you see, just going back to your point, you're talking about Witkoff here, who's a real estate lawyer. Now, he and Trump are used to doing deals. I've mentioned this before. They're two-dimensional deals. When you're doing a property deal, you start high, you then, someone comes in with the counter bid, which is lower, you oscillate around and you've basically come up with a price. Here, it is far more complicated than that. It is not just a price. What price is the end of the war, is it? Because you've got raw emotion here, you've got those tribal sensibilities. Putin wants a reunited Mother Russia. That's what is behind all of this. Now, when you look back to what actually the US was then proposing, the idea that essentially Ukraine has to cede ground. This is Keith Kellogg who came up with this, if you remember. He essentially said, right, we're going to divide Ukraine. The West would be Anglo-French troops. You'd also have Russia taking the East. So the captured areas that Russia would hold on to, for example, Crimea, Dnipro, and so on. And then there would be an area of demilitarization in the middle. Why would you cede that territory to Putin, which you have taken illegally, and you have no ramifications, and there is no kickback to Russia for the actions they have taken?
Yeah, well, quite. And, it's very easy on paper to draw up those dividing lines and to mark out that territory and just to say, right, that's the deal on the table, take it or leave it. But ultimately, there is still, again, the psychological an emotional attachment, obviously, to the territory that each of them hold, where war is not as easy as just drawing a line in the sand or drawing up lines on a map. You've got people who obviously are Ukrainian, fundamentally want to be Ukrainian, and should remain Ukrainian. That's Zelensky's point of view, and he'll be asking himself, well, why should I cede territory here, or why can I not get the military backing of Europe or and America? But obviously, as you say, Donald Trump wants a deal. He wants the mineral deal with Ukraine,
which he thinks he's got.
He thinks he's got, and because America's obviously spent billions of pounds.
So just let's look what Putin said. He said, this is a quote, "I order all military actions to cease for the period." He said this in a televised meeting in the Kremlin with Russia's top general Valery Gerasimov. Now, who is that message aimed at? Is that aimed at the United States? Is it aimed at Ukraine? Is it aimed at his own domestic audience, which I think is growing fractious with an ongoing war? And of course, they're only being given one side of that story.
I think all of those things, but I think it's predominantly, I would have thought, geared to the Western world and the Western alliance. So, you're seeing, I think, obviously, what's taken place already. So the US have had meetings in Saudi Arabia with the Saudis to try and sort of get involved there. Obviously, you've seen President Macron of France, bring together people from Europe. You had our own Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, trying create the coalition of the willing to get involved. And so I think all of these are moving parts, and therefore it is, even though that is not a coordinated effort, in fact I think it's quite messy because you've got too many people trying to do too many things, but I think everybody coming together, which I think is where it's going to end up. That's why I think Macron and the Americans...
Where is it going to end up?
Well, I think the coalition of the willing that Keir Starmer sort of set up...
Isn't that just words?
What Macron... Well, it is at the minute, exactly. And that's what I think Macron was trying to get America to... So everybody who is wanting to get involved and setting up all these things, they need to be coordinated and come together to try and force...
If I was to put you on the spot, who do you trust most? Do you trust Zelensky or Putin?
Zelensky.
Why?
Yes. Because I think he is someone who, for what... all the faults that he might have, and he might be a terrible negotiator, and he might be too emotional. I think that emotion is born out of a genuine feel of being hard done by. Obviously, the invasion of Ukraine was an illegal war. It was an illegal invasion, whatever way in which Putin wants to dress it up. And it is not the first time.
I mean, it is interesting. When I put that, and I said it on this programme, I got kickback from people saying it's not an illegal invasion. Yes, it was.
Well, it is, yes, yeah. I'm afraid to say, well, it is,
Yes.
I mean, Russia will say it isn't, because they'll say that they are Russian people. Actually, it's the people in parts of Ukraine that want to return to Russia, and that they will have some sort of referendum there, and that's why, Russia... So there will be ways in which you can purport that claim, but ultimately it was Ukraine territory, it was invaded, and that's why we have a war on our hands. But this isn't the first time Russia have done it. We saw it in Crimea, we've seen it in Georgia.
Absolutely.
And that's why I think when push comes to shove, then yes, I think Zelensky, I'm afraid, has the backing.
OK, and if the US does walk away, it has a mineral deal, it then walks away, does it then run the risk of being a bystander, I would have said, at best, or at worst a cheerleader for Putin?
Well, if it walks away, I mean, I imagine it'll just be a bystander. I mean, America, the way in which I see the presidency at the minute is obviously it's an America-first strategy, and it's all about, obviously America, in the eyes of Donald Trump, has given lots of money to Ukraine to help fight this war. It wants some of that money back in return, and that's through the minerals deal. But it could ultimately just say, you know what, guys, this isn't our fight. We've given a lot of money. Even if they can't get a minerals deal, they'll just say, right, we're out. This is Europe's fight. This is Europe, or the need to stump up the cash. They're your closest sort of partners. You need to talk to them because it's America first now, and we're not getting involved in any further conflict. Donald Trump will try to say we've tried our best and we've got involved. It clearly hasn't worked, but now if they don't want our help or they don't want our support, then we're off.
And I think the timing is really interesting as well. Of course, Donald Trump said he would end this pretty much on day one, and of course that hasn't happened. So just in terms of his presidency, how he sees himself, how history will judge him, I think that is also driving this. Charlie, thanks very much for the moment. Let me just throw that question over to you, if I may, this morning. Who do you trust the most? Is it Putin or Zelensky, and why? And if the US does actually back down and say, look, we've done our best, as Charlie says, we've done our best, we've tried to broker a deal, the deal isn't happening, we're walking out, we're out, it's Europe's problem, then does the US run the risk of being called a cheerleader for Putin or a bystander in this war? 0344 499 1000. Those calls charged out the national rate. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can also message us on X. Just very quickly, there is one more part to this story. Russia is actually now snatching men from gyms in a conscription drive to bolster the Russian forces as well. Witnesses have seen police dividing those people in the gym into citizens, non-citizens. The Russians are then taken to police stations to check their military details, and then they are conscripted back into the military. So this is a very dangerous time if you live in Russia. We'll talk more about that a little later on. Also, after the break, I want to talk about the Supreme Court ruling. We talked about this yesterday. We now know that a woman is a biological woman. I don't understand how it took the Supreme Court so long to come up with that ruling. But anyway, thousands of trans rights activists gathered in London yesterday after that ruling, and they targeted many of the statues with graffiti. They say they're going to deny, they're certainly going to just defy the Supreme Court ruling. And meanwhile, there is also a WhatsApp plot by Labour to defy the trans ruling from the Supreme Court. We'll talk more about that after this break. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
You want to look at, fake patriots, you've only got to look as far as Nigel Farage, who's fawning over Putin.
Why do you say that?
Does not
Why do you say he's a
with
fake
our
patriot?
flag. Because, look, we've seen this from other potential leaders in the past in this country, and we've rejected them. We have our British values, and that means standing up against dictators. And when we see the likes of Farage fawning over Putin, it's the public's responsibility to unite and reject that fake patriotism, which I'm sure we'll see going forward.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:26 Sunday, Easter Sunday, April the 20th. Charlie Rowley joins me this morning, front page of the Sunday Telegraph, if you are just waking up. So Zelensky says Putin shattered his own truce. You may remember that Putin says we're going to have a 30-hour truce. Well, it didn't happen. It was shattered. This is also in the Sunday Times as well. Putin calls a truce, but the air raid sirens blare in Ukraine. I just want to mention about this story that I just very quickly touched on before the break. Russia snatches men from gyms in Putin's new conscription drive. During an evening workout in Spirit Fitness in southeast Moscow, gym goers were suddenly told to drop to the floor. This was not part of their training, as you can see here in the video. Look at this. So they were told to drop to the floor. It was an instruction from Russian police hunting for illegal immigrants and military draft dodgers. So these raids are happening all over Russian cities. So apparently what happens is the police, as you can see there, divide them into citizens and non-citizens. If you're a Russian, you're taken to an enlistment office where your military records are checked. And if you're a non-citizen accused of immigration violations, so basically they are then accused of immigration violations, they're given a choice. They're either deported or you can enlist in the Russian army. I know which one I go for. This is in Spirit Fitness, as you can see these pictures. So apparently, according to some of the eyewitnesses, they would check your passport, flip to your military service page, and if it said you were obliged to serve, you would then be taken off to the enlistment office, no matter what. And they say, this is their line, just for verification. I think not. So that's interesting. It's worth remembering, of course, Charlie, they were actually emptying the prisons as well, weren't they? Because they're desperate. I mean, just the scale of human tragedy, just these young men being pushed onto the front line without a care for Putin.
Yeah, I think that's right. And it's, also a sign that for what you see from Russia and what they try to project onto all of us, that Russia isn't actually as in control as I think it wants us to believe that it is. Because there was, as you say, if they're going after people just by going to the gym or emptying prisons, there was obviously the Wagner group that sort of, mounted that coup that almost toppled Putin in Russia a couple of years ago now, I think it is. So, they are not the strength and powerhouse that Putin would have us believe. So I think,
and they're running out of manpower.
And they're running out of manpower, and that's
quite literally.
Quite literally. So I think that's part of the reason why Putin is trying other tactics to mount offences when he can destabilise the opposition, make quick gains, as he would see it, and try and bring the war to an end by winning it in that way.
Right, let's move on and talk about trans, because yesterday we had two amazing calls, one from a trans woman who talked about what the Supreme Court ruling meant for her, and I'm very grateful for that call. And then we had another call from a lady who was talking about why this ruling is just so important. I have never seen so many messages coming in. And of course, I think for most people in this country, everyone is pretty much welcoming the judgment from the Supreme Court saying a woman is defined by being a biological woman. There are two sexes, and I think everyone is thinking, thank goodness we've got past peak idiocy. And so that was what we dealt with yesterday. The judges said the concept of sex is binary, whilst cautioning that the landmark ruling should not be seen as a victory for one side or the other. The court was very clear, though. It said transgender people should still have legal protection from discrimination, and that is right. And now what happens is the companies and organisations have to catch up. So you're going to have male changing rooms, female changing rooms, and you have to have private cubicles for those people who want the privacy. So if you are a trans woman or a trans man, then you will have to have some sort of private space. I don't think it's rocket science. Anyway. Then yesterday, on the back of that, thousands of trans right activists gathered in London after that ruling, and police are now investigating because of the damage that was caused in central London. Statues targeted with graffiti as thousands of trans right activists demonstrated in central London. Trans right groups, trade unions, here we go again, community organisations all came together for what was billed as an emergency demonstration in Parliament Square in Westminster. Activists, I mean, this is extraordinary, activists demanded trans liberation and trans rights now. The irony is some of them were holding pro-Palestinian flags. Let's have a look at what happened yesterday.
One struggle, one fight, Palestine trans rights. 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 One struggle, one fight, Palestine trans rights.
Palestine trans rights, there aren't any.
Well,
Do they know what they're chanting?
I can't speak for them, David,
No, I know
but
you can't.
I suspect maybe not. And I admire their energy and enthusiasm for that particular cause, but I would suggest politely that they go to Palestine and chant
See how
it
long they
out
last.
there and see what the ramifications may be.
The thing that made me really angry was they put graffiti on the statues of the suffragette leader Millicent Fawcett, the South African statesman Jan Christian Smuts, in Parliament Square. The police launched an investigation. I want to know, why weren't the police prepared for that, for a starter? Did they actually have any intel? Now, Chief Superintendent Stuart Bell says it is very disappointing to see damage to 7 statues, 7, and property in the vicinity of the protest, saying we support the public's right to protest, but criminality like this is unacceptable. And I totally agree, and I hope they come down very hard on them.
Yeah, quite right too, because it's, it's often a group of people that are obviously of the extremist political agenda, who are revolutionaries or feel that they're revolutionaries, Republicanites, and anarchists that will jump on any cause, any bandwagon to protest against something, whether it's against the monarchy, whether it's against the state, whether it's against the court's ruling, and they'll clump together. And as you say, that this has been a whole conversation about rights for people, women's rights, and
women's rights, exactly
right. And then you get a group of people that are hijacking it, I'm afraid, to talk about Palestine, where it's not the place all the time. There are plenty of marches that take place through central London, as we know, to promote Palestinian causes, and so you keep it to that. If there's a protest going on, you don't need to mush it all in together.
Well, I was going to say it's complete mixed messaging.
Totally, and it does nothing for the cause. For and I don't understand why perhaps either cause exactly. And so trans activists are obviously upset by the judgment. Why on earth they would want to invite or allow their cause or their protest to be hijacked by another cause, as if there's some sort of solidarity there? The public are looking at it.
Well, they see themselves as the oppressed, don't they? That's the whole point, is that they're sort of lumping in all oppression. I mean, it is extraordinary. So this is someone from, they had all these groups there. Trans Kids Deserve Better, Pride in Labour, Front for the Liberation of Intersex, Non-Binary and Transgender People, Flint, and Trans Action. Never heard of any of them. They say the mood is jubilant, also angry, and people are anxious. Right now, trans people are coming together to demonstrate to the country. I totally get it, that you're anxious. I get it, and that's what our caller said yesterday, that actually the new ruling made her anxious, but what my pushback was, but surely this gives us clarification now, and you need to be protected and looked after by having single-sex spaces. Anyway, they go on to say queer people have been through worse than this before. This is nonsense, because you're now conflating biological sex with sexuality, and they are completely different.
And the anxiety comes, I think, and why people will be anxious, and why there will be a trans community that is obviously anxious and obviously out there to protest against the judgment. But that anxiety will come about because the way in which the debate has been conducted and the way in which the protest is now taking place and the activism. I think my only message to the trans activists and to those campaigners would be the way in which you just started opening this debate, which is to say, look, we accept actually the rule, and thank you for the clarification, but we do exist as a society still. All we want is to be better looked after, that we want our rights, which is what the Supreme Court also, as you say, ruled in its statement, that, you know, in terms of equality and all you know, hate crime and all the rest of it. You know, but so it's accepting a ruling, but trying to then explain to the public, look, you know, we are people too. We are normal people. We just happen to feel as though that we were born into the wrong body and want to take positive steps to change that. But it isn't fighting to just access, you know, women's only spaces on that front. It's trying to just be more open and conversational about it. I can't help but thinking if that debate was conducted earlier on, then we wouldn't have the complete opposites and the protests and the you know, the activism and the extremism that we see today.
I want to carry on this conversation, actually. The Bridgerton actress Nicola Coughlan said she was horrified and disgusted by the ruling. Well, I don't really care.
But
it's
why?
a ruling from the Supreme Court. I don't care what you think.
Yes, yes. And there's just, you know, because it factors in lots of different ways of life, but the main ones I think that I took from the ruling was obviously sports, for health reasons, and for clarity for
privacy.
companies and privacy. And I don't think there is...
Safeguarding.
Safeguarding. I don't think there is anybody arguing, if you just take sports, for, you know, nobody is arguing, I think, against that ruling when it comes to sports, because it is defining the idea that if you are biologically born male, if you are and identify as a trans woman, you can be a trans woman. No one is saying that you can't be trans or you can't be trans.
100% right.
But what they're saying is, because of the facts of the biology, you can't get into the swimming pool competing against a biological woman because you've got a competitive advantage. That is crystal clear now. That is clarity. I don't think anybody is arguing now against that, because that is pure and simple common sense that should have been articulated in the past. And it's just, you know, saying to people that, you know, to women who want single-sex spaces, they have those rights to have single-sex spaces.
Quite right.
No one is excluding you from going into the gym. No one's excluding you from doing anything other about day-to-day life. It is just about privacy, and it is about sex, and it's about having the protections for everybody. And you can, and I think that's just the clarity that's been needed, and that's, you know, what should be accepted, and we should all move on.
Yeah, after the break, I want to talk about this. Labour's WhatsApp plot to defy the trans ruling that has come out of the Supreme Court, and also trans doctors can hide their biological sex despite the Supreme Court ruling. We'll talk about that. Just one very quick message here. Dimitri said, send one of them to Gaza and let's see if the Palestinians give them a flying lesson off the nearest building. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Weekend Breakfast, 6:39, Sunday, April the 20th. I'm joined by Charlie Rowley, who's got his ears back on, celebrating Easter Sunday. By the way, happy birthday for Friday.
Oh, thank you very much.
How old were you?
I was approaching 21.
Right.
From the wrong direction.
I see, yes.
35.
Good Lord.
The big 3-5. Officially mid-30s now, yes.
Are you sure?
And I'm, as you can see, I'm a serious political commentator.
You are a very serious political commentator. Keep all your messages coming in, please. I'm asking lots of questions, actually. What do you think about the trans activists who are defacing the statues in Parliament Square based on the Supreme Court ruling? Also, I'm asking, who do you trust most? Is it Zelensky? Is it Putin? Also, if the US walked away, could you then accuse them of being a bystander or, at worst, being a cheerleader for Russia? Let me know your thoughts, please. 0344 499 1000. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can message us at talk as well, at talkTV. Now, good morning, David. This is Sean in Gloucester. When I saw those protests yesterday, it made my blood boil. For me, it's never a protest when vandalism happens. They need to be arrested and they need to be treated like the rioters last year. I totally agree, Sean. This one says from Elliot, good morning. These protesters are just rent-a-crowd. Time and time again, they get exposed for knowing little to nothing. I think that's right. They don't actually know what they're shouting about. When interviewers go into the crowd to ask them questions, these people will only learn the hard way. And by that I mean, if they got what they wanted, they would soon find out. Trans in Palestine. As I was saying, they defaced these statues of Millicent Fawcett. I wonder if you actually said to them, who's that Millicent Fawcett? See if they actually know, or the significance of Millicent Fawcett. Just also, this other article which I read this morning, this is, I think, the Daily Mail this morning. Oh yeah, here it is, front page of the Daily Mail. Let me show you that. Ministers in a WhatsApp plot to defy the trans ruling. You're a minister. Your job is to uphold the law of the land, which has now been made very clear to you by the Supreme Court. Apparently, according to this, Labour ministers are secretly plotting to defy the landmark court ruling. Do they think they're above the law? That men who change gender are not legally women. This is according to leaked WhatsApp messages obtained by the Mail on Sunday. It's quite interesting, this, because Keir Starmer, I think he said, oh, I really welcome this ruling. Well, he didn't know what a woman was, did he? Anyway, he says, I welcome the Supreme Court judgment. Now, in the messages which were sent on Thursday evening, Culture Minister Sir Chris Bryant joined an attack on Baroness Falconer, who's chairwoman of the Equality and Human Rights Commission, who earlier that day had said the ruling, a woman is defined by biological sex, clearly meant trans women could not use single-sex female facilities or compete in women's sports. I've actually got the transcript of what they said. Dame Angela Eagle says, let's meet about this when we get back from the Easter recess to decide a way forwards. The ruling is not as catastrophic as it seems. Chris Murray says, definitely agree, meeting early next week would be good. Steve Race, I thought the ERHC chair on Today saying the ruling meant trans women could not use single-sex female facilities or compete in women's sports was pretty appalling this morning.
Yes.
And Chris Bryant then replies, agreed.
Well, clearly, already I was proven wrong, because I said moments ago that I didn't think anybody would criticise the sporting element of it.
The Labour Party is.
But, you know, that sporting analogy, I think, is an important one, because, look, as you can see today, I'm identifying as a rabbit.
You are.
A bunny.
And you, right.
But I'm not going to be able to do bunny hops or bunny races or whatever, because I'm physically, you know...
Not a bunny.
Not a bunny. It is as simple as that when it comes to sports, I'm afraid. But that is just a fact. But in no way saying that fact am I attacking or dehumanising anybody that is, or bunnies, you know. Let bunnies be bunnies. But the trans community, you know, if you are trans, I think you need all the love and support
I agree.
In the world, because it's obviously going to be awful growing up.
But also you're caught now, if you are trans, you're caught now in this war of words between the do-gooders, those people who think they're acting on behalf of trans people. But when you speak to trans people, many of them are welcoming this because they say now we are afforded protection, we know where to go. And in fact, the caller yesterday, a trans woman, was saying that she struggled in women's changing rooms because, although she did use those the majority of the time, she tried to use men's changing rooms because that was her biological sex, but got punched and headbutted when she did that. And I was saying, well, you need to be protected, don't you? And surely what the law allows you to do now is to have protection and a safe space.
Yes, exactly. And it's exactly that. And it's about having those facilities to allow people who are trans the ability and also the dignity to get change without, as you say, being attacked. But it's also right, therefore, for biological women, or now, as has always been the case, women, to get change in single-sex spaces.
I can't believe we got to this stage at all.
No.
Where we're questioning what a man is, what a woman is. Anyway, let's take a call. Barry is on the line from Norwich. Good morning, Barry.
Good morning. Happy Easter to you.
Yes,
both.
happy Easter to you too.
I'd just like to mention the Supreme Court ruling,
Yes.
and just to congratulate the women who fought for that. For years
well
and years and
said,
years.
well said.
Yeah, and this transgender stuff and their marching and defacing statues, it's not about transgender. It's about women and girls. And biological women don't want men in their toilets, in their change rooms. I've got a daughter who's in high school. I don't want boys in their changing room. It's not about transgender people. It's about the rights of women and girls, to have their own spaces. And it makes me really angry when you see these people jumping on the bandwagon and go, oh, right, it's going to be stripped away, you're taking us back 20 years. Absolute load of rubbish. Yeah, and I'm just really glad. I mean, on a funny sort of side to this, the 2 female judges and 3 male judges, was it, in the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
It took them about 10 minutes. They must have gone back, had a cup of tea and gone, do you know what, we're Supreme
And it was
Court
unanimous.
judges.
It was unanimous, wasn't it?
We're Supreme Court judges, and we're having to tell the nation what a woman is? I mean, come on.
I mean, to be fair, there was a little more nuance in that. They did say it is not a win for either side. I think what they were doing was clarifying the law. And, of course, I think the problem is we've allowed it to slide so much that people were then saying, well, if I'm a trans... I mean, also, we then got into all these conversations yesterday about if you are a trans woman but you haven't had an operation and you have a penis, you should not be in a female changing room, should you?
Look, there's two things you can't change no matter what you dress up in. You're born with XY chromosome and XX chromosome.
Yes.
Yeah, right? You're either
Most
male
people
or
are.
female. Yeah, or you get
I don't want to make it more complicated, but yes.
No, well, no. But, so that is it. And for me, congratulations to them women. I really am pleased that they've seen it through, and Right,
let me ask you. Let me ask you for your thoughts on this. So, the General Medical Council, that's the body that oversees us doctors. Okay, they are pressing ahead with its new policy of making it voluntary for doctors to record any data on their gender or sex. So, if you are a transgender doctor, you'll be able to hide your biological sex from the public. So, if you are a woman and you say, actually, I want to be seen by a female doctor, if this goes ahead, you could be seen by a trans woman who is a doctor.
Me personally, I think that's disgraceful if you're hiding your sex away from somebody. If it's not. But you got the government now backtracking. These judges are the highest judges in the land. They have made a law in this country. A law with now. If people want to go break the law, including the government and the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer's going to be in a bit of trouble on Wednesday when he gets asked what a woman is. Yeah,
Although Kemi Badenoch could probably make a mess of that one, but yeah.
Oh, I thought it was me standing there. I'd ask him straight away what a woman is. I wouldn't be able to resist it. Yeah, but I just think, anyone breaking this law should be prosecuted.
Of course they should.
Simple as that. Yeah, right. End of. You can walk around in a skirt, wear makeup, do what you like. You're not biological. I had someone telling me the other day that sex is defined at birth. I went, so when you went for a scan to see your baby before it was born, they asked you what you want to see the sex of the baby. Was that just something they said? Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know where this crazy stuff.
I think it was Dawn Butler that said your sex is defined at birth.
Well, you had David Lammy turn around and saying that, you can grow cervixes in men.
Can you now?
Well, apparently so, yeah. Right. I mean, it's just crazy, when you think about it. Absolutely crazy. How do we get here? That's what I want to know. How do we actually get here? You've got the Prime Minister saying that 1% of women have got penises. I mean, come on. I thought my biology teacher had been lying to me all those years ago. I really did. I was on a food education department.
I mean, you make a brilliant point. How did we get here? And it's kind of that emperor's new clothes, isn't it? When you allow it, it became pervasive, so that you kind of just were drawn along sort of with one nonsense after another, and we suddenly ended up in an entirely different place from where we started.
People saying there's 100 odd genders and you cis this and cis that. And, someone said to me before, you identify as a male. I went, no, I don't identify as a male. I was born a boy, I'm a male. I don't identify as one.
No.
Yeah. But, it's a crazy world we live in, but hey-ho. Yeah.
Well, at least we have clarity now. It's always good to talk to you, Barry. Hope it becomes sunny in Norwich later on today. Thanks ever so much for your call. We'll continue this conversation after the break. I just want to just tell you what I'm going to talk about. Ed Miliband. Very cross, very cross. He has now launched a blistering attack on Nigel Farage's UK net zero, as he calls it, nonsense and lies. Ed Miliband versus Nigel Farage. Who's going to win? This is Weekend Breakfast.
Look, I don't know what Mr. Lowe is up to. What I do know is there is a police investigation. I do know that there is an investigation by the parliamentary authorities. Those will sort of carry on follow their course. But bluntly, we're just moving on. We are obviously we're working hard, campaigning around the country. And May the 1st is a very important day for all political parties, including Reform UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 6:53. Good morning, David. This is Maureen in Stamford. Good morning to you, Maureen. Wishing you all at Talk a blessed Easter. I do hope the thugs who have damaged the statues yesterday feel the full force of the law. Me too. And I wish you a very happy Easter as well, Maureen. Rachel says, good morning, Dr. David and Charlie. Happy Easter to both of you. I'm also asking this morning, who do you trust the most, Zelensky or Putin? And if the US does actually stand back, does the US run the risk of being called a bystander or a cheerleader for Russia? Peter Stone, good morning to you in Croydon. Good morning, both. I've never trusted Zelensky. That's interesting. He's a charlatan, he's a fraud, he's always played the victim, he's playing Europe, especially Starmer and Macron. Thank you for that. Also on the trans rights stuff, Bill in Cheshire, one of our regulars, trans rights in Palestine. Ha ha! Listening to the chants at yesterday's demo was hilarious. What a bunch of morons. Please give them free passage to Gaza and see how long they last before they're thrown off an apartment block roof.
Well, say what you really think. I mean,
say what you think, Bill. Oh, by the way, we looked up how many people are trans in this country. 0.5% are trans. That just shows how powerful that lobby has become. We were also looking at the number of people who are LGB. No, we weren't. We were looking at the number of people who are L and G, i.e. gay. 3.5%. So just to put that into some sort of context. I want to talk about net zero now, which I know you're very passionate about. Ed Miliband has torn into Nigel Farage and the Tories. He says they are peddling dangerous nonsense and lies by suggesting the UK's net zero target is responsible for destroying Britain's businesses, including its steel industry. Well, it is. That's the end of that. No, so Cabinet Ministers are determined to fight back against the way that Reform UK and the Conservatives have unceremoniously lambasted the climate crisis agenda for what they believe are nakedly political reasons. Farage, the Tories, they've blamed the perilous situation at British Steel's Scunthorpe plant on high energy costs, saying renewable energy prices have put the company on the brink. Now, remember, Ed Miliband said net zero is going to reduce our bills by £300. They've gone up £300, at least.
Oh, absolutely. And look, you know, I have been on the receiving end of criticism and debate before, because I, you know, have been pro net zero, and I think that that is still an aim to have. If it doesn't, but this is the key thing. This isn't the small print. This has to be the headline. So long as it doesn't increase bills or impact on our economy in any way, because I just would like a cleaner, greener planet for the next generation. I don't think that's a bad thing.
But I think, so your difference is about the timeline. That's where you and I agree. Yes, it's a great aspiration, but let's not impoverish people on the way to that aspiration.
Yes.
So also, just going back to the blast furnaces, we need virgin steel. It doesn't seem like rocket science. So let's open our coal mine so we get coke, so we can then have the virgin steel mine. But equally, in terms of net zero, let's build some nuclear power stations, shall we? Let's get on with that.
Exactly. And this is where it absolutely drives people potty, and I can absolutely understand, is when you then end up sort of saying, no, pro net zero, we need to cut this, cut that, move to renewables. You end up having an industry on its knees that needs state intervention. But then, when you learn that actually we were importing, and you have to import coal, which, I mean...
From Australia.
You know, hello. You know, the other side of the world.
Because there's no carbon footprint on that.
Exactly. And I know people will get into the debate and say, well, hold on, you know, what's the point in the UK trying to have net zero when actually you've got China, India, South America now, you know, polluting no end to increase their, turbocharge their economies. I absolutely understand that argument. And of course, you know, the UK on its own is not going to have
1%.
Any dent in the global emissions, but it will make our own air quality better, and for health reasons. So that's why I would try and continue better environmental policies in the UK.
So just very quickly before the break, it's really interesting. Farage said at this rally in Durham last week that reform would reindustrialise Britain, saying this would require the country to start producing enough of our own gas and oil and coal. We need to be self-sufficient in oil. Parking tanks very much on old Labour's ground.
Yes, because I think, you know, the country has sort of seen so many things, perhaps, where the state should have intervened in the past but didn't, and also where there have just been failure and perhaps there hasn't been the accountability for companies. So, for example, I mean, I personally, for what it's worth, very good, wouldn't have championed nationalising the railways. I know people moan about them no end, and I know there'll always be delays. I don't think the state is going to improve things, but where water companies have failed, in particular, pumping mass amounts of sewage in all parts of our country, that I think is somewhere where the state could have intervened a lot earlier and should have done, and maybe nationalised.
Or stronger regulation.
Stronger regulation, and the same with maybe in some of our food and farming and fisheries, and maybe also when it comes to steel.
Can we just go back, because I have to go to the break, but also, Ed Miliband, you have to understand the price of electricity is pegged to the price of gas. So, renewables are making a lot of money for the people who actually own them, and they're making the rest of us much poorer.
Yes, quite right. Yes, yeah.
Keep all your messages coming in, please, this morning. Who do you trust the most? Is it Zelensky or Putin? Let me know your other thoughts this morning as well. David, I've got a penis, and I wouldn't dream of going into women's places. What is up with these people? That's Alan in Merseyside. We'll go over all of the front pages after this break. Don't go anywhere. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
You said you don't like Polish people and you don't trust them.
That's not what I said.
Yes, that's what you said.
No. You must have misheard me. I like Polish people a lot.
Christ me, I never heard of this from you. I've heard this on the radio.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. You want to have a listen? Have a listen to what I said. Okay. Listen to this. I don't like Poles. I wasn't talking about Polish people.
Yes.
I was talking about polls. You know, when you do a poll to find out what people think. You know, like they say 55% of people vote Remain, 45% vote Leave. That's a poll. I wasn't talking about...
but later on you said you don't trust them, so you don't...
I don't trust them. No, that's true. I don't trust polls, and I don't like polls because I don't trust them. But that's not Polish people.
No, that's what I thought. That's what I pick up.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Listen, well, I would never say anything like that.
No, so in this case, I never learned English.
No, listen, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I'm very glad you called in because I wouldn't want you walking around thinking that Mike Graham is a horrible bigot. He doesn't like Polish people.
No, I was thinking, what the hell? What's going on here? Actually, I must be back and explain a few things.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, a very good morning to you, and I wish you all a very happy Easter. I hope you're having a fantastic time wherever you are celebrating this very important day. Also, a very happy birthday to my setup producer, Gabriella. I hope you have a wonderful day as well. So, there is great news this morning. It is, of course, Easter Sunday, the most important festival in the Christian calendar. It celebrates Jesus rising from the dead 3 days after his crucifixion.
Happy Easter, everybody!
Well, that's inappropriate.
I hope you have a good one.
It's the Peterlee World Egg Jarping competition today. It's a competition to see whose boiled egg is the hardest by tapping them together until one of them breaks. It's now practiced all over the world, but the championship home is Peterlee in County Durham.
Egg. Do you like this egg? Extraordinary egg.
Wow, that's a good one.
I don't mean to egg.
That's a really good one. Also, by the way, today is Lookalike Day. It's the day that celebrates people who look like you. So what you have to do today is keep a beady eye out to look for your doppelganger. Yeah, Lookalike Day.
I swear I ain't looking for trouble. Don't blame me, man, blame it on the double.
I like saying doppelganger. Obviously, it's a German word. It's a German word. Right, let's move on to this morning's fascinating facts. Today's
fascinating facts.
So, some new ones for you this hour. On this day in 1912, the Irish-born writer Bram Stoker, brilliant writer, author, of course, of Count Dracula, died at his London home. He was 65. Now, the inspiration for Dracula, and I was obsessed with Dracula when I was a child, was Whitby. Yes, that was the inspiration for the novel. Now, on this day in 1924 was the birth of a brilliant actor who I absolutely adored also when I was growing up, Leslie Phillips, CBE, English actor with a highly recognisable upper-class accent. Originally known for his work as a comedy actor playing English stereotypes in those brilliant Carry On films, which probably you can't broadcast anymore because they're far too rude. And the Doctor series, of course, Doctor in the House. You, sir, what's the bleeding time? 4:10. I know it backwards. Phillips subsequently made the transition to character roles. And on this day in 1964, BBC Two launched. It launched, though, with a power cut because of a fire at Battersea Power Station. And those are this hour's fascinating facts.
Join the fun, it's Easter morn. With David Bull, our spirits born. Charlie Hops, bringing light. Breakfast magic, all feels right.
Well, a very good morning to you. Happy Easter. Now, what do you need at Easter? You need to celebrate a brilliant day, obviously chocolate, and you need an Easter bunny. And so I brought my very own Charlie Rowley is here this morning dressed as an Easter bunny. Morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
You always are exemplary in everything you do.
Oh, that's very kind.
Because you were a gingerbread man once.
I was.
Yes, you were Santa's elf once.
I was. The things I do for light entertainment.
I know.
Very light.
It's almost my fault, isn't
yes,
it? Yeah.
yes.
Oh, I forgot my ears.
You've got yours there too.
Yeah, look, you see, I have actually, and that's thanks to Dave. And
Yes.
we are obviously celebrating Easter. Have you had an egg?
Not yet, no, but I am very, very partial. I've got quite a sweet tooth, so I am very partial to a cream egg. I mean, others I'm sure are available, but I do like a Cadbury's cream egg, which I'd probably be indulging.
Do you think they've got smaller?
They have.
You see,
I think
it's like that and wagon wheels.
Yes, but ever since I've always noticed, when they changed from, they got taken over by Crafts, didn't they? That American company a few years ago. Oh, was it?
Anyway, carry on. They got taken over. I'm sure it was Hershey.
Oh well, someone somewhere will be finding out that.
Yeah.
Another fascinating.
Who took over Cadbury? Can you just find out for us? Yes.
But there was a slight change in the taste of the flavour, and I do recall that, but it's still very nice.
So they reduced the cocoa solids, I think. That's what happened.
Yes. But I know I'll be indulging later on, I'm sure.
Oh, lovely. Now, we actually ate one yesterday on air. Yeah. Also, thanks very much for your Postbox toppers. Gerald Austin, I showed you some of his. We've got some more coming in as well. These are these incredible pieces of artistry, I think you can call them, crochets and all the rest of it, where they go on the top of postboxes and they brighten up town centres, village centres and so on. There have been some in my hometown of Framingham in Suffolk, and I think they're rather wonderful, and you see rabbits and all sorts. So thank you for those. Here we are. There's one. There's a hen and some chicks, some eggs. I just think they just bring the countryside to life, and it shows the idiocy of the British people, and I love that. Don't you? Here's another one. What's that? It's an Easter bunny, isn't it? Easter bunny and eggs, and where's his eyes? Well, he's asleep.
Oh,
is he asleep?
Yes.
His bow tie's on his head.
What a lazy bunny.
Lazy bunny. But thank you very much for... Thank you very much for all of those.
I think Tom Daly might be onto something with his, because he does a lot of crochet, doesn't he, in knitting? He could have inspired the nation, I think.
He does. He does topless knitting.
Does he?
Yeah. Cadbury, by the way, is owned by Mondelez International, a multinational confectionery company based in the United States. I imagine Mondelez also going to make them do even more work.
Yes.
Mondelez, we now need to know what other brands Mondelez actually owns. Let's just take you through this morning's papers. I'll take this off because it is quite serious. If you are just waking up this morning, let me just show you the headlines. This all happened yesterday, basically. Putin said there was going to be a ceasefire for 30 hours, and he broke it pretty much immediately. The Sunday Telegraph this morning, Zelensky says Putin shatters his own truce. Vladimir Zelensky has accused Moscow of failing to uphold the Easter truce announced by Vladimir Putin. Ukraine's president said his forces would abide by the ceasefire if the Kremlin did the same. He said Russian artillery fire had not stopped and attempted to seize territory at the same time. He said Russian assault operations continue on several frontline sectors amidst Russian artillery fire. It hasn't subsided. Now, this got me thinking, because Putin did this televised meeting where he said there would be a ceasefire. He said it would last from 4 p.m. yesterday, this is our time, until 10 p.m. tonight. And yet he didn't uphold that ceasefire. And then I got thinking, well, either he has lost control of his generals and army and he doesn't have clear lines of responsibility, and then I thought, well, actually that's probably not right because he'd have them executed, or he never intended to uphold a ceasefire.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was the latter of those two, because, you know, as we were talking about just in the previous hour, you know, if you're conscripting people and having to go to gyms and rope in, you know, bodies, men to obviously fight, then I assume you might feel as though you might not be winning it as best or as quickly as you'd hope. So I think they've got to probably try every kind of tactic to announce a ceasefire and then renege on it, or to try and do anything just to get the upper hand.
I mean, it's interesting. There's another story in the Daily Mail actually this morning. RAF fighter jets were scrambled twice in 48 hours to ward off Russian planes from NATO's airspace. Apparently it's been revealed British Typhoons were mobilised, 2 separate incidences last week. Kremlin planes are coming closer and closer to NATO's borders. They're basically just touching the border, and of course it's important that we have resolve and we see them off.
Yes, and submarines as well, always sort of, I think...
Looking at undersea cables.
Looking at undersea cables, and I think... But, you know, we should always take comfort from the fact that we know that this is going on, and we do, you know, have better monitoring powers, I'm pretty sure of it. And I think, you know, there's always the projection, I think, of what Russia wants us to believe it is, and the reality. Because, obviously, Putin was almost toppled last year by the Wagner Group. So they're not as, I think, structured and coordinated and as strong.
Well, that's why I said, is he really in charge of his own forces? I just wonder whether the generals are tiring of him, because they're seeing, we talked about conscription, they haven't captured the amount of territory. If you remember, the whole Ukraine war was meant to be over in a matter of weeks.
Yes.
And that has not happened.
Yes, yes. No, quite right.
So I wonder if the generals are actually tiring of Putin, and when they tire of a leader, the leader disappears.
Yes, yes. I mean, but I think that was part of the issue with the coup that tried to, you know, attempted coup that took place, because there were some generals that ultimately sort of flipped on Putin. So I wouldn't rule it out of the question.
This is quite interesting, actually. This is in the Daily Mail this morning. Nigel Farage is as likely as Keir Starmer to become the next Prime Minister. This is according to a new poll. The More in Common poll reveals that Reform UK leader is in joint pole position to make it into Downing Street in 4 years' time. I talked about another poll yesterday as well, putting Reform at 28%. There were cries yesterday from various parts of the Conservative Party, a party you know well, to say that, well, clearly, this was Jacob Rees-Mogg saying, well, clearly the way forward is for the Conservatives and Reform to come together. I couldn't disagree more.
Well, there's a couple of things there. I mean, I think, look, for Reform, who are surging ahead in the polls and are gaining popularity, because, you know, A, of the mistakes that happened over the last 40 years, so not getting on top of immigration, that was obviously a huge mistake by the Tory government, but also, and that's why they were kicked out. There was no love for Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. It was just to really get rid of the Tories. But now there is obviously someone else on the scene, Nigel Farage, that is saying a lot of things that a lot of people think and care about, and that's why he's gaining momentum. But I do think you're right. There has to be a caution to Reform, because its strength, and it's the reason why it's so popular, is it's drawing support.
Because it's not the other two.
It's not the other two, but it is drawing. It's identified itself, and quite rightly so. The gap in the market is that people don't want, I think, political parties just to say what they think they should be saying. So they don't want the ideology. They want someone to come in and tackle the issue-based reality.
And that's so interesting, because that is what I totally agree with you. They like the direct approach, and we have to be careful. It's the local mayoral elections we're in Perda, so you have to be very careful. But I think that's right. What they see is someone Nigel Farage not afraid to say what he thinks, and I think people welcome that breath of fresh air. I'll move on before we get ourselves into trouble. Talking of saying what you think, I don't know if you've kept an eye on this. Thousands of people took to the streets across the United States. This was yesterday to protest recent actions by President Donald Trump. In fact, Caroline Faraday was telling me what was going on. These are known as 50501. 50 protests, or 50-51. 50 protests, 50 states, one movement. It's coinciding with the 250th anniversary of the start of the American Revolutionary War. We know that Tesla has been under fire, generally across the US, because of Musk and his support for Donald Trump. They're also looking at the response to Dodge, of course, cutting many jobs and many people losing their employment. So things aren't going quite as well for Trump as one might think. 45% of voters, according to Gallup, approve of Trump's performance in the first quarter. That is more than 41% who approved in the same period in his first administration. But it is lower than for other presidents. There again, I'd argue this is his second time as president, so I'm not sure that you can actually equate the same figures.
Yeah, and I think, there has been a bit, I think, of an intake of breath given the way in which things are going in America. I mean, he came in on a huge wave of support because of, again, probably a lot of it probably because Biden was clearly not really fit for office by the end. I think everybody sort of accepts that now.
It was really sad.
It was quite, I mean, it wasn't. But even though Donald Trump has come in, he's sort of said he's going to put America first, he's going to deal with things like immigration that people want to sort of see here, and you turbocharge the economy and get people sort of building and making things in the US again. There has been this other side of, I think, there are a lot of Americans that still pride themselves on, wanting to have the very best and the leader of the free world to be that statesman. And I think, even though they're encouraged by some of the rhetoric by Donald Trump, I think going back to Zelensky, I think that row in the Oval Office was slightly unedifying, and I think people were sort of saying, oh, right, OK, even though we know he's a businessman.
I mean,
and
it was set up, that wasn't it?
Well,
I'm sure it was set up.
It was. I mean, it was awkward. I mean, it was fascinating TV if you're literally not involved. But it was. I think he didn't hold back because he's as you see him, and I think he was annoyed about the way in which that conversation was going. There were 2 or 3 times where I think Donald Trump overlooked what Zelensky had said previously and the way in which the conversation. So he did hold, I think, his tongue up until a point where he just thought, right, I'm not having this. This is my office. This is my country that's giving a hell of a lot of money. This isn't what we've come to talk about. I think obviously a language barrier didn't help, I don't think. But anyway, it was explosive, and I think, but I think some Americans thought, well, maybe that should have just been done behind closed doors, and you might have thrown your toys out the pram a little bit. But anyway, so that's why opinion might be
I want to pick up on Trump's style in the media, actually. We'll do that after the break. I'm asking the question this morning, who do you trust the most? Is it Zelensky? Is it Putin? If America stands back, then is America actually being a cheerleader for Russia, or is it actually now turning into a bystander? Let me know your thoughts on that. 0344 499 1000. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can message us on X as well. This is interesting. Pete the Mole says, I don't trust either Putin or Zelensky in any situation. Good morning, David. Miliband versus Farage. One mad net zero zealot against one straight-talking make British great again politician. For me, it's Farage all the way. Happy Easter. That's Steve in Cambridge. Dave in South Gloucestershire. Good morning, David and Charlie. The trans community are demanding respect from the rest of us. However, those protesting and saying they will defy the common sense factual ruling are displaying appalling disrespect to women and girls. Respect is earned, it is not demanded. Keep all those messages coming in, please. They're really, really good this morning. Like every morning, obviously. They're very good this morning. Keep all of those messages coming in. After the break, I'm going to talk about Keir Starmer and how he can change his media image. Have a think about that over the break. I also want to talk about the bin strikes which are ongoing in Birmingham. Isn't it interesting that those politicians who represent that area are not affected in the wealthier areas and the people who are affected are in the poorer areas? That is not fair, is it? This is Weekend Breakfast. A very good morning to you.
This very nice woman doesn't want to have her name revealed because she's got a sort of senior post in Glasgow, goes cross-country skiing, flies from Edinburgh to Oslo, got a perfectly valid passport, but gets to Oslo airport and the Norwegian police do not understand the passport rules. They frisk her, they fingerprint her, they detain her, and then they deport her. And finally, yesterday, they got round to saying, not sorry, but a procedural error was made.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Talk. Good morning, dear David. Nick Moore. Good morning to you, dear Nick. I have to declare I'm finding it very difficult to engage in your show with the necessary gravitas today, whilst Charlie, who I consider a star commentator, is dressed as an extra from an Alice in Wonderland pantomime.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Thank you for that. Keep all those messages coming in, please. I'm asking, who do you trust the most? Do you trust Zelensky or Putin, or neither, or both? Ukraine, this is Bill in Cheshire. Putin can never be trusted, but Zelensky is no angel. Has a lot of questions to answer. Europe needs to be very careful here. If Trump bails out, which he could easily and very quickly do, then the UK and the EU will be in the firing line. Well, the UK will, as the EU support will rapidly evaporate. That's a very interesting point, and of course, and you've got multiple countries there not exactly seeing eye to eye in terms of the best way to go forward. The European Defence Force, for example, Maloney not very happy about that. This is a proxy war that Biden allowed to start and is unwinnable by any side. Keep all of those messages coming in, please. We were talking about conscription as well in Russia. The fact is Russia are raiding gyms in Russia and conscripting people back into the army. Good morning, David. Like Russia, Ukraine is also doing it. They're taking men off the streets. This war just has to end. Now, I'm just looking at another really interesting article here, which we'll come to in a minute. But just going back to Trump, you know, we were talking about the fact that he fires from the hip, and people like that in many senses. And then he has made an art of the televising of anything, literally anything. And that has worked to his advantage. I think young people are engaging with that. Now, there's a really interesting article in The Guardian. Senior Labour figures are urging... I know.
First time for everything.
I was so surprised.
Where is it? It's very low down.
Senior Labour figures, though, this is quite interesting. Keir Starmer doesn't have the resonance. He doesn't have the cut through. I mean, he's... How do I put this nicely? He hasn't got any personality. So, you know, he gives these sound bites, doesn't he? Working people, blah, blah, blah. There's no... He's dead behind the eyes. That, if you compare him with Farage, you know, he's normally got a pint in his hand and he's, you know, he's a bit of a cheeky chappy. Kemi Badenoch, her problem, I think, is she doesn't let herself go. And I think people want that nowadays. The days... What is interesting is the days of when you had set television debates and the civil servants or your political advisors would give you a sheet. You stick to sheet. You do not deviate from sheet whilst you are doing... You know I'm right. Yes. You do not deviate. So you, whatever question you're asked, you just do this. This is what your answer is. But those days have gone. Now, senior Labour figures are urging Keir Starmer to take a leaf out of Donald Trump's book. They say you've got to be on television more. You've got to do more media appearances. You need to dominate the political agenda. You've got to act more like Trump. And obviously that strategy is very different to Starmer. Starmer believes in safety first. He basically is way behind. So the news agenda now is moving so quickly. I mean, if you go to sleep for more than 4 minutes, it's completely moved on. Trump and Vance have shown the advantage of getting out there, not worrying about making mistakes. And if you remember, where I think Donald Trump and Farage actually have done incredibly well is they're not afraid to do those interviews with students, with bloggers, with vloggers, with whoever else, because what you're doing by doing that is you're getting to bits of the audience you would never, ever reach.
No, I think you're absolutely right. All of that is true. And I think, so for what it's worth, I think if you're an opposition party, then I think you absolutely want to go on the attack all the time, and you should, because that's what you're going to do. You want to attack the government. So Kemi, I think you're right. Kemi, I think, should be... Kemi, people voted for her, the Tories did, because they liked that she was tough-talking.
But you see, I don't know what she's like. I don't have any sense of what she's like. And I'm sure she's very nice, but I don't see passion.
And this is the thing, because I think if you're trying to tell someone to be somebody else or do something, you know, so I think Kemi is bearing the responsibility of trying to be rightly the leader of the opposition, His Majesty's official leader of the opposition, and therefore that comes with obviously much more high status, more scrutiny, and so you've got to play also that role. Whereas I think if she's just the tough-talking, you know, woman that we know that she is, you know, she might be getting a slightly more coverage. But I don't think that can be said for Keir Starmer. I think if you start turning up as somebody else, as a Donald Trump impersonator, I think people will see through that like there's tomorrow, because people know that that's not the real Keir. But the problem that Keir has is, I think, because he just...
Is he the wrong person, then, to lead the party?
Gosh, I mean...
What about Wes Streeting? Put him in.
So Wes Streeting is clearly more political, absolutely, and has beliefs, I should imagine. I think the problem with Keir Starmer...
That's interesting. He has a belief.
Yeah, whether you agree with it or not, at least he's, you know what he's talking about, and he can communicate a good message. Keir Starmer, I think, is literally a trained lawyer and will pontificate on a particular view. He'll come down on one side of the argument. There's no overriding strategy or inner core belief that he has, which is why he'll decide one day about cutting winter fuel payments. The next it'll be, okay, yes, public sector pay rises, because, you know, but without seeing the bigger picture politically that, actually, I can't take from one and give to the other because there's a problem here, but we've got to, and there's no central message because he doesn't have those beliefs.
No, that's right, they're rats in a sack, aren't they? So they all come out with their own policies, but there's no overall strategy.
Yes.
as to how this will impact taking away the winter fuel allowance, for example, or net zero, or whatever it is. And then you suddenly got Rachel from accounts trying to work out, oh, we haven't got enough money. Well, no, because it's all joined.
Yes, and I think that's what people crave. I mean, it doesn't matter what your politics is, for example, but if you've got a set of values and beliefs, then I think you end up gaining more respect. So you could absolutely hate Donald Trump, but you know what he stands for, and you know it's MAGA, you know it's going to making America great again, and it's America first, and you could be the most international, free-loving person in the world, but at least you know what he stands for, and you can respect that rather than somebody who you don't really know what they stand for. And I think that's why Nigel is ahead in polls nationally, because people can disagree with him, they can dislike him, but they know what he stands for because he's authentic, and that's why he gets the coverage, I think, because it is totally authentic, and there's no, it doesn't hold bars. And I think, when you're doing an interview, whether it's on the BBC, for example, he will tell you exactly what he thinks, and if you disagree with it, but he'll always have something to back up his claim because he believes in it, and he's not someone that will just have those lines to take, or that.
Well, I was with him on Thursday, and I said, he was the first person to talk about the small boats crisis. He told me that actually he was called all sorts of things under the sun because they all thought he was insane and a lunatic because he was making it up. That was the press. And of course, one of the biggest problems for Keir Starmer is he is not on top of the small boats crisis in any sense. What was it, 9,000 we're now at? It's interesting, though, there's an article in The Sun saying Labour is now looking to Denmark for inspiration to tackle illegal migration. The SDP there, the Social Democratic Party, have some very hardline policies. So essentially, I'm just reading what they are. Failed asylum seekers don't get benefits, you're only given food. You have to stay in return centres. You cannot work, you cannot study. The Danish Border Force has the powers to confiscate items such as jewellery and watches from migrants to help them fund their asylum costs. You take your watch off them. That's then used against them. If you visit your home country, your residency is revoked. If the situation improves in your country, you're out. And they say, we don't grant migrants the right to stay. If you're rejected as an asylum seeker, you have a very low possibility of actually staying in the country. When you look at the numbers, and they also, by the way, ran a PR campaign putting people off coming. So the requests to Denmark peaked at 21,000 in 2015. They are now down to 2,000.
Well,
that is how you deal with it.
Yes, but it's, it's a bit late, I think, to be perfectly honest, taking that approach, because this is a government that scrapped Rwanda policy on day one. Whatever you think again about Rwanda, it was a deterrent. I mean, we'll never know because of the numbers, because it was scrapped. But anyway,
but it was starting to show dividends.
It was starting to show, and so the idea then you start to hear then other policies, from this government about.
Well, the return hubs that they've just announced sounds suspiciously like Rwanda.
Yes. Oh, yes, yes. And so you think, well, what the hell? What was the point in sort of, getting rid of it in the first place? But then also people are, and I understand the theoretical argument about, well, if we've got so many people in this country, reduce the amount of time that they can start working from 12 months to 6 months. I don't think that is a goer at all. That is a pull factor.
Of course it
to
is.
say, oh, there's no deterrent, and actually if you get to the UK and you're there for 6 months, and it's going to take longer than 6 months for your claim to be processed anyway. By the time you've got a job, you're more likely to be granted asylum anyway.
I agree.
So I think there's no coherency again, but I don't think what it sounds like Denmark are doing a bad job. Obviously not.
I would agree. Charlie, thank you for the moment. Keep all your messages coming in, please. I'm asking, who do you think is the most trustworthy here? Is it Zelensky? Is it Putin? Also, the US. If the US does sort of duck out, does it run the risk of being called a bystander or indeed a cheerleader for Russia? The number 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can message us on X as well at talkTV. Now, you're a fan of tech, aren't you?
Oh, yes. I can't get enough of the tech. Yes.
Well, the social media age.
Oh,
so this morning I came in and said something about a graphic designer, and all the young people laughed at me, and I don't still quite understand why they all laughed at me.
Right.
Apparently it's an old-fashioned term.
What did you say?
Well, I said, are you the graphic designer today?
Oh,
is that funny?
I see. No. What's the
well,
correct...
I'm sure Davis will tell us.
Creative.
No, but apparently I just use old terms for old people.
What's wrong with graphic design?
I don't know. Let's ask Davis in a minute, because after the break, it's time for Tech Rundown with Davis Fang, and he's no doubt going to be rude to me. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 7:34 already on Easter Sunday. I wish you a very happy Easter. I hope you're celebrating in style today. I'm asking this morning, who do you trust the most? Is it Zelensky or Putin? Is it both? Is it neither? This is based on this. This is Zelensky's comment. Putin shatters his own truce. That's the Sunday Telegraph, the Sunday Times. It's interesting, that changed overnight. It was the big headline. Putin calls truce, but the air raid sirens blare in Ukraine. This has been replaced in the print version by victory in the Supreme Court and the deluge of hate mail. This is based on that Supreme Court win. This is shocking, though. The campaigners who won the Supreme Court battle over the legal definition of women have been inundated with death threats and misogynistic abuse since the landmark judgment. It's absolutely dreadful. They got messages, including one saying, "You're a disgusting group of murderers and deserve death. God will rip you from your family one day and nobody will mourn you." Another read, "Your inhumanity makes me vomit, you stupid woman. You should feel deeply ashamed for being so stupid." Absolutely appalling. Thankfully, the nastiness is dwarfed by messages of love and support, many of which have brought them to tears. And of course, we were talking about the destruction being done in central London. I mean, who writes stuff? I mean, that's just unacceptable, isn't it?
Happy Easter.
Yeah, well said. Happy Easter. Actually, talking of Happy Easter and Happy Easter gifts, that's a segue, isn't it? It's now time for Tech Rundown.
Tech Rundown.
Davis Fang joins us this morning. Very good morning to you.
Happy Easter to you all.
Happy Easter. What is wrong with the word? What was wrong with what I did this morning when I said, "Are you the graphic designer?"
Well, you were talking to a group of video editors and you call them graphic designers. They're
similar.
very different fields.
Are they? Okay.
Like, I studied video editing for 3 years.
Right.
If you were to have called me...
Can you do graphic design?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
I am terrible at Photoshop, and that's what graphic design is.
So I just got it all wrong, Charlie.
Well, but now you know.
I know now. I know now. Are you doing anything? Oh, yes, you are doing something exciting for Easter.
Yes, being on this show.
Hanging
out with you.
And then you're having lunch with me.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yes, isn't that fun? I hope you can't wait, though. Right, you've chosen some jolly good stories today. I really like these, actually. Shall we start with Discord and face scanning? You're going to have to explain this because I don't know the difference between a graphic designer and anything else.
Okay, so we've talked about this a lot over the past year, I'd say. So a lot of different countries are implementing certain bans for children and their use of social media. For example, in Australia, where I'm originally from, they're trying to ban children from using, Facebook, Instagram, social media sites like that. And the question has been, how will this be implemented?
Yes.
It could be done in a lot of different ways.
So the verification.
Yes. So the verification is the issue. And in the UK as well, there's the Online Safety Act that's coming in July. So all of these social media sites are sort of scrambling to find the best way to do it. And Discord is the first to act. And they've introduced...
What is Discord?
Discord is sort of like a messaging service. I'm sure we all love Microsoft Teams and Slack.
I hate them.
Yeah, well, this is sort of the gaming version of that.
I can't bear it.
Well,
I can't bear it. It's like enable your mic and then sit here and do this, and then I can't get in.
Yeah.
And then you're on the wrong code for the meeting.
well, yes.
Well, can you imagine a Microsoft Teams made for 13-year-olds?
Right.
That's sort of what Discord is. And
is it video then?
It does have video, but it's mostly chatting and voice chatting. But the thing is, they've introduced face scanning. So if you try to log into Discord, and they're trialing it with a few different people in Australia and also the UK at the moment, you will get a message. I believe we do have an image of this message, but basically it says that you need to scan your face, sort of like how you need to scan your face to confirm your ID with a bank or when you're getting your passport done, and you use your phone, and then basically it will scan your face and determine sort of what age you are. Apparently it can do it within a 1 to 2 year accuracy. So the technology apparently is quite good, and you only need to do it once every now and again to sort of confirm your identity.
So it's looking at bone structure, it's looking at maturity of your face.
It's all very interesting, and it's not quite as dystopian as a lot of us were fearing. A lot of us were fearing, oh, you need to do this every single time you open Facebook or Instagram or something. But it's not quite that case.
Okay, interesting. How does it work for someone like you that looks young? Well, I'm just asking.
All right.
I'm honestly
I'm not looking at you.
I know. Yes, I noticed. Right.
I'm honestly not too sure how it works because, like, it is remarkably accurate.
Is it?
However, we do have instances with Apple's Face ID where mothers can unlock their daughters' phones and stuff like that.
Wow, because they have similar features.
Yeah. So obviously, it isn't 100% foolproof, but it is it's the first attempt at this long journey, I'm sure.
It is a long journey.
Terrifying, I think.
Is it?
Well, with 1 to 2 years. But if you're, I mean, if my dad could, unlock my phone, I mean...
that is terrifying.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of doppelganger day as well, I am an identical twin, and I can unlock my brother's phone and vice versa. So,
can you?
It's kind of awkward, because when we used to have fingerprints, we couldn't unlock each other's phones because, fingerprints are unique. However, with faces, clearly not unique.
Has that happened where you've unlocked his phone or he's unlocked your phone and then...
Many times over.
And secrets have been...
Many secrets have been scattered.
Oh.
And shattered on the ground.
We won't tell anyone. Tell us.
We shall in the break.
Okay, in the break. Okay, good. Now, this is very interesting about Tesla. Well, Tesla's constant in the news, isn't it? And of course, we've seen them, people changing the badges on a Tesla. Have you seen this? That people don't want their cars trashed, so they change the badge on the Tesla and so on. We've also seen a fall in the price of the Tesla. I don't know about the second-hand value of a Tesla as well, but this is interesting because I have a Tesla. It's coming to the end of its lease agreement, and what I'm trying to work out is what its residual value is, and this is important, this next story.
Yeah, so I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with, checking the mileage of our cars. They all work in a fairly, common mechanical way. However, Tesla likes to reinvent the wheel in more ways than one, and sometimes it works brilliantly and sometimes it doesn't. Well, they've sort of decided that, yes, it'd be a brilliant idea to re-engineer the way that odometers work, the way that we measure the mileage of a car. So instead of doing it the normal way, Tesla have decided to come up with an algorithm that looks at a number of things like energy consumption, driver behavior, and other predictive algorithms, and to come up with a mileage. And so the number that you see on your odometer in your Tesla might not necessarily actually reflect the number of miles you've actually driven. And this has sort of caused a little bit of a stir because they are being sued in California because of this. So there was this person named Nairi Hinton, and they've got a 2020 Model Y, so it's coming across 5 years and then sort of reaching the 50,000 mile warranty point. Unfortunately, they need to do quite a significant repair, and they want to get it done under warranty. However, they've noticed that the mileage on the odometer does not actually match their actual usage.
How do they know that?
Because I've got the figures here. They average 55.5 miles a day, and for some reason over a period of time it said that it was averaging 72 miles, and because of that there's some sort of discrepancies, there's something weird going on.
Well, the allegation being that Tesla's fiddling it so that it goes over 50,000 so they can't claim on the warranty.
Oh. Well, I'm up in arms, as you can tell.
I mean, but it is pretty shocking because and also your residual value is based on the mileage. So if you have a PCP or a BCP, business contract purchase or personal contract purchase, just keeping you up to date.
Yes.
Then you are allowed to do 10,000 miles, say, a year. Now, if you go over that, there's a penalty. Now, if Tesla's making up the mileage, that's a problem.
Yeah, and the thing is that there was absolutely no need to do this.
No.
Like obviously, they're doing fun things like, cameras instead of instead of door mirrors. That's all interesting. Maybe not entirely needed, but like this is just something that really did need to be reinvented, and they've opened up a whole can of worms here.
Haven't they just?
I'll stick to the bus.
Do you not have a car?
Oh, you can drive?
I can drive. I don't have a car, no.
Is there that for a reason?
Not since the incident. No, well, I just see when you're in London, I don't need to drive, so it was pointless just having a car on the drive, so we got rid of it. But
I can't imagine you on the road.
I'm actually a very good driver. I am. Yes.
All right, I'm not completely convinced.
I'm not convinced either.
Why not?
I don't know.
What do you think?
I think you'd be dawdling.
Dawdling? No, I like to open it up on the motorway every now and again. I do not anything.
All right, for a spirited drive.
But I was a very safe driver. But I do like driving. I would like to get behind the wheel.
This is brilliant. Graham Haitley, good morning to you. Graham says, face scanning on phones. I once demonstrated to my daughter I could unlock her phone by showing it my daughter's photograph on my laptop.
Yes. So that's actually 2D face recognition. So a lot of Android phones do have face recognition, but it doesn't use a LiDAR scanner, which is what iPhones have, which sort of creates a 3D image of your phone. So it can be fooled.
But that's wild. If the child thinks they're protecting the secrets from their parents, and their parents just show a photo of the child and it opens, and then they can scroll through, which you shouldn't do, by the way.
So could that work then? I mean, it's a pretty sort of far-fetched thought maybe, but if you stole somebody's phone, or if somebody steals your phone, but knowing maybe who you are, and then they just sort of get a picture of you through, I don't know, another social media app or Facebook. So if I steal your phone, which I would never do, so don't worry. But if I then got a photo of you up on my laptop, I could open your phone. You could end up doing it to anybody.
Well, the thing is,
you knew who they were.
If you had an iPhone, you couldn't do that because it uses a different technology. However, if I were to have a number of Android phones, and if it did use that 2D facial scanning technology, then theoretically, yes.
Because once you've opened a phone, I mean, I know that in itself is, a scam and crime, but once you've accessed someone's phone, it's blindly obvious to say, but you can access bank details, you can access personal data.
All the passwords you've stored in there.
Exactly. I mean, that's a terrifying prospect.
Right, on that note, we'll pause. We'll take a break. After the break, Davis will be here. We're going to be talking about new NHS robot that has been approved. We're also going to be talking about that brilliant, was it half marathon, wasn't it?
Yes.
The half robot, half human, half marathon, which we were talking about before, but it's actually taken place. And then Davis is a big fan of smart glasses, so we'll talk about those as well. That's all still to come. This is Tech Rundown. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Labour now are in turmoil and very split on this, whether or not to back this sort of radical unpeddling of some of the sort of, more pernicious things that have been put into place. Do you have any sympathy with the Labour Party over this?
Well, I think we need to hear some leadership from Keir Starmer on this. It's one thing to say we'll note the judgment, but what is the government, what is the Labour Party in power going to actually do about this?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, David. Having just turned on your brilliant show, I thought I was watching the wrong show. Your guest appears to be dressed as a rabbit. I think I need to go and have another lie down. That's Andy in Sheffield.
Well, Andy, it is Easter Sunday, and I was instructed, Andy, if I can be so bold as to put it like that, on numerous occasions, by the way.
I think it was a heavy hint.
There was a strong hints that were forwarded on to me, by the way, by the lovely Gabrielle,
yes.
Whose birthday it is.
Whose birthday it is. Happy birthday, Gabrielle. You'll like this one, though. Good morning, David. I'm loving Charlie's bunny ears. They are so cute. I just want to stroke them. Great show. Happy Easter. That's Rob in Portsmouth.
Well, I've told my dad not to message in anymore, and, there you go.
Well, Rob, I'm sure you can have a stroke of his ears.
Thank you, Rob. That's very kind.
Yeah,
Thank you. Happy Easter.
Right. Let's go back from ears to tech. Now.
Seamless transition.
See, I think that's pretty seamless.
Seamless.
Now, so the first half robot, half human, half marathon, we had talked about this because it was up and coming now.
Yes.
It's taken place. Now, tell us what happened.
Yeah, so this was an absolutely historic event. So, we love half marathons. Well, I love watching people run by, at least. And then
holding a glass of something. Jolly good, carry on.
And we also love robots, especially, robot races, because, it's all interesting these days. So China had an idea. What if we were to combine the two together? Two things that people love. So they had the first ever on April 19th, which I believe was yesterday, the first ever half human, half robot, half marathon.
Yes.
Which is very difficult to say. So this was, there were 21 humanoid-style robots over there, and it ran the 21-kilometre course. And the thing is, robots are battery-powered.
Yes.
So there was a little bit of concern in trying to get a robot, like from the beginning all the way to the end. So they did introduce battery swaps halfway through. So the winner of the robots, which was
Tiangong Ultra.
Yes. I'm glad that you said that and not me.
Yeah.
So we finished in 2 hours and 40 minutes. And I don't know, that sounds pretty good to me. Like, if I were to run a half marathon,
here we go.
that would be pretty good.
Right. But the human won in...
but the human one in just over 1 hour. So it's more than twice as slow than the fastest
look at
human.
these.
I mean, it's pretty fun, isn't it?
That's not running, that's just like...
And then we've got the human handlers as well for radio listeners.
There we go.
So each robot is accompanied by someone controlling it with a remote control.
I mean, that's...
Oh, no. Yeah,
he fell at the first.
Yeah, so there were a lot of human
What did he get
robots
up again,
falling. Yeah, it did get up again.
That's too funny.
half, what was it?
Half human, half robot, half marathon.
And half cut by the looks of that one. It's just fallen over.
Here he goes. Up you get. Come on.
Yeah, so the idea of this is basically like, as fun as this is, it's the idea that we use races to sort of progress technology.
He hasn't done anything. What is that?
Gosh.
Yeah. Oh God,
look,
that's
she's-
very out of control.
That's me.
Sorry, for those listening on radio, that robot obviously was half up and fell over and fell into the barrier. What's going on? Oh, this is a drone watching what's going on. These are these people? These are
no,
people.
they're definitely robots, if you ask me.
Okay. And this is a screen.
It's a very small robot.
That's
I
a
think.
diddly robot. Actually, he was only 3'9" inches.
Well, he's just half.
No, that's very tall if you ask me.
3'9", that's about your height.
Yeah, precisely. Much taller than me, actually. Yeah, so the idea is to race robots, and through racing, with racing cars, it's like, that will progress robot technology more.
I mean, it is amazing, but just watching the way the technology is improving, I mean, at the moment, they're sort of, what we would say in medicine, that's a very interesting gait.
Yeah. Yes.
Because he's just doing
It's speed walking, isn't it?
It's a waddling power walk, yes.
It's a wobbly power walk.
It's like when you watch a speed walking at the Olympics, and you're like, yeah, that's
Anyway, I think that's pretty amazing, actually. So there we are, the world's first half robot, half human, half marathon with half cut robots.
Exactly.
Exactly. Now, Facebook. It's not relevant, is it, anymore?
Well, apparently not, because I think that you're on Facebook quite a bit.
Yeah, all right.
David.
I'm not relevant. Am I? No. I had a Facebook account, right? People joined it who weren't my friends. So I wanted to only have friends, but you can't do that. So the only way to get rid of that account is to delete, as far as I understand, all your friends.
Well, that's one of the options, yes.
But I can't get rid of that account.
Yeah, you can make a new one, I guess.
I did.
Yeah.
But I can't get rid of the old one.
Oh.
But that's why this was interesting to me, your next story.
Okay, I think it's different for a variety of other reasons as well.
Oh.
Basically, this week, Mark Zuckerberg...
He means I'm wrong.
Was,
that was a lovely story, David, but actually, if we can get on to the main
Mark Zuckerberg was talking to the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission in America, because of a variety of relatively boring things, like stuff that we've heard all the time, like he bought Instagram and WhatsApp to effectively smother competition. Well, that's here nor there. What was particularly interesting was that a number of things were revealed, like little ways that Mark Zuckerberg thought that he could regain Facebook's cultural relevance, because over time, especially over the past 10 years, I would say, it's very much skewed to a older demographic. And younger people, especially Gen Z, are no longer so attracted to the platform. Although I do hear Facebook Marketplace is still very popular among younger people. And one of the ideas that Mark had that made everyone very excited...
First name, Mark.
It's a casual context. Was to actually delete everyone's friends that they've procured over the past 2 decades or so. So, like, the idea was that if you were to restart your network from scratch, it could initiate a lot of excitement among everyone. And I actually think that would have been quite an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Like, it would have made me definitely a little bit more involved with Facebook again, because I honestly can't remember the last time I posted there.
Yes. I mean, Facebook it seems to me, become sort of the new version of what was Friends Reunited. So the old people trying to find friends or find old contacts, and so Facebook is the place for that. But you're right. I've never done it, but I always respected people that could do a cull, so a Facebook cull. So they would accumulate all these friends and people that they just met along the way, and people that weren't actually friends, and then every now and again they trim the list, because they'll think, I don't actually know that person, we're not friends, delete. And I respect people that can delete and block people.
Well, you see, but that was the problem I had. So I reached 5,000 of my closest friends, and then realised that
you've got 5,000.
No, I haven't.
Friends.
That was the point, and I wanted to delete them. But the only way, I think, is you have to do it one by one.
Yeah, that would have been a tremendous task.
Exactly.
You might just have to ask, hey guys.
But you can't close the account until you delete the friends. You see.
I see. Okay. I think you should have made it.
Well, unless he can find out.
You should have made a post like, I've reached my limit. Please unfriend me if you aren't actually my friend.
There you go.
I know what I'll be doing.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to save your glasses for another day, because you've got to bring them in. I'm just going to embarrass you. Let's save those. Davis, thank you so much for all of those.
Appreciate it.
And that was today's Tech Rundown.
rundown.
Ah, goodness me. Lots of messages actually coming in this morning. Keep all of those coming in. Who do you actually trust the most, Putin or Zelensky? What do you think about the US? Would the US, if it steps back, risk being a bystander or a cheerleader? Keep all of those messages coming in. I don't trust Putin or Zelensky. If I had to choose maybe Zelensky, I'd rather not choose. That's Jane. This one says, hi, David, I don't trust Putin at all. Why are we all being so stupid to even contemplate giving him a chance? And what has Zelensky done wrong? There seems to be a lot of mud being thrown around at him, but no actual facts. Am I right? Please let me know. That's Esme. Thank you. Keep all of those messages coming in, please. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
Our time is up.
Oh.
Your ears have to go.
They do. I might take them into town. I might go out.
You're going out, are you?
Well, I might. It'd be rude not to.
It would be rude not to, yes. But thank you ever so much. It's been a great pleasure to have you
as
here
always.
This morning. And I wish you a very happy Easter as well.
Happy Easter. Thank you very much.
Right. Still so much to come after the break. I want to talk about something really important, actually, which is social care. We talk a lot about the NHS. I want to talk about social care because that is the elephant in the room, actually. I'm going to be talking to Joyce Pinfield, Vice Chair at the National Care Association and campaigner at Providers Unite. Also this morning we have our Future Politics panel as well. That's all still to come. This is the Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
You said you don't like Polish people and you don't trust them.
That's not what I said.
Yes, that's what you said.
No. You must have misheard me. I like Polish people a lot.
Christ me, I never heard of this from you. I've heard this on the radio.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. You want to have a listen? Have a listen to what I said. Okay. Listen to this.
Yes.
I don't like Poles. I wasn't talking about Polish people.
Yes.
I was talking about polls. You know, when you do a poll to find out what people think. You know, like they say 55% of people vote Remain, 45% vote Leave. That's a poll. I wasn't talking about...
but later on you said you don't trust them, so you don't...
I don't trust them. No, that's true. I don't trust polls, and I don't like polls because I don't trust them. But that's not Polish people.
No, that's what I thought. That's what I pick up.
Oh,
so
I'm terribly sorry. Listen, no, well, I would never say anything like that.
No, so in this case, I never learned English.
No, listen, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I'm very glad you called in because I wouldn't want you walking around thinking that Mike Graham is a horrible bigot. He doesn't like Polish people.
No, I was thinking, what the hell? What's going on here? Actually, I must be back and explain a few things.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning. I wish you a very happy Easter morning. I hope you're celebrating around the country. Great news this morning if you are just joining us. Of course, it is Easter, a very important celebration in the Christian calendar. Also, a very happy birthday to my setup producer, Gabriella, who turns 25 today, plus tax. Also, great news, as I said, it is Easter Sunday. It's the most important festival in the Christian calendar. It celebrates Jesus rising from the dead 3 days after his crucifixion.
Happy Easter to all!
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter!
Not sure that's appropriate either. It's the Peter Lee World Egg Jarping competition today as well. It's a competition to see whose boiled egg is the hardest by tapping them together until one of them breaks. It's now practiced all over the world, but the championship home is in Peterlee in County Durham.
Henry went to the market, there he bought an egg. It looked somehow strange, but he didn't mind. Daddy was so hungry, he wanted to fry eggs. What came out of the egg? You may guess 3 times.
Wow, that's quite something. Well done. Right. Also, today it's Look-alike Day, a day that celebrates people who look like you. So what you have to do is keep your beady eye out today for your doppelganger. Yeah.
You say you talk to somebody, he even looks like me. Oh, baby, why do you say things?
Oh, dear. Doppelganger. It's such a brilliant word. Yeah, it's German, by the way. Let's move on to this hour's fascinating facts. Oh, there you are. Today's fascinating facts without any sound. Oh, there we are. Right, on this hour. So on this day in 1949, the badminton horse trials were held for the first time at Badminton in Gloucestershire. On this day in 1961, the birth of actor Nicholas Lyndhurst, best known for his roles as Rodney Trotter in Only Fools and Horses, Gary Sparrow in Goodnight Sweetheart, and as Adam Parkinson in Carla Lane's series Butterflies, which I grew up watching. Now, this is interesting. On this day in 1968, the Conservative right-winger Enoch Powell made a hard-hitting speech attacking the government's immigration policy. Enoch Powell said Britain had to be mad to allow in 50,000 dependents of migrants every year. He compared it to watching a nation busily engaged in heaping up its own funeral pyre. He said, "Like the Roman, I seem to see the river Tiber foaming with much blood." Of course, what turned out to be a very controversial statement. Actually, as far as I can recall, he made those comments in a very small meeting, actually, to his constituency. And, of course, many people quote that to this very day. And those are this hour's fascinating facts.
Easter breakfast vibes bring the joy alive. David pulls on the line. Come on, let's drive. With news and jokes, we're feeling so fine. It's party time.
It certainly is party time. I actually was trying to get hold of the front page of the newspaper, but there are a lot of cream eggs in the way, which I'm going to indulge in just a minute. Well, a very good morning to you if you are just joining us. With my... Oh, I forgot my hat. With my very serious face on, though... This is the front page of the Sunday Telegraph. Putin has shattered his own truce. Volodymyr Zelensky accusing Moscow of failing to uphold an Easter truce announced by Vladimir Putin. If you remember, Putin said we're going to have a 24-hour truce. That truce never came to pass. Ukraine's president said its forces would abide by the ceasefire, said Russian artillery fire had not stopped, and attempted to seize territory at the same time as well. Also, it talks about the trans activists. The Supreme Court ruling yesterday, and now trans activists are defacing statues in central London of Fawcett, the feminist hero. It's absolutely disgusting. The Sunday Times also talks about this as well. Victory in the Supreme Court, then a deluge of hate mail. This is the campaigners who won the Supreme Court battle over the legal definition of a woman. This is absolutely terrible. They've been inundated with death threats and misogynistic abuse ever since that judgment. Messages sent to the organisation's email address included one that said, "You are a group of disgusting murderers and deserve death. God will rip you from your family one day and nobody will mourn you." Another read, "Your inhumanity makes me vomit." What inhumanity? Protecting girls and women? "You stupid women should feel so deeply ashamed for being so stupid." They go on to say, thankfully, though, the nastiness is dwarfed by messages of love and support, many of which have brought us to tears. And as I was saying, on the back of it, these trans activists are now attacking statues of Winston Churchill. The pride flags were taped to the statue of Churchill. One of the suffragettes, Millicent Fawcett, was defaced with a slogan as well. They chanted slogans including Wes Streeting, "You have blood on your hands," and another which said, "F the judges." Charming. It is a ruling from the Supreme Court. This is interesting. Nigel Farage backs more nationalisation. He said he would sit down and talk to trade union leaders tomorrow if he was elected Prime Minister. He said he would actually support nationalising other industries beyond steel. It's fascinating, this. As Reform UK attempts to ape Labour as the party of the working people, Farage said if Britain was to re-industrialise, then relationships with unions would be a very important part of that. He said he admired people like Bob Crow, Roy Link, who led the Nottingham miners' strikes in the 1980s. Wow, that's Reform UK stealing Labour, not this Labour, but previous old Labour's clothes there. Also on that trans story, the front page of the Mail this morning, ministers in WhatsApp plot to defy the trans ruling. They think they're above the law. They're not. Also, we spoke about this yesterday. Sunday Express, bending the knee to China risks UK security. The government has been accused of endangering our national security by bending the knee to China. Rachel Reeves yesterday said it would be very foolish not to engage with China. Yeah, but China cannot have all our critical national infrastructure. Lots more going on in the papers this morning. But I want to talk about social care. It's really important in trying to sort out the NHS. We spend $200 billion a year on the NHS, and people see one part of it. Social care is a really important part of this equation, and it's totally ignored as far as I can see. Back in January, and I got this off the government website yesterday, back in January, the government set out its ideas to transform social care. New reforms and independent commission to transform social care is the blazing headline from January. The government, according to this, sets out immediate investment and reforms to improve adult social care. They say our package of support will deliver the government's plan for change by helping to keep older people out of hospital and living at home independently for longer. It goes on to say thousands more disabled people to receive home adaptations as government improves technology and data sharing between the NHS and social care. Now, crucially, it also says Baroness Louise Casey is to chair an independent commission into adult social care. Thousands more people with disabilities will be supported to remain in their homes, and it goes on to talk about the various things they want to do. Now, fast forward to where we are now. In April, the government still has not held a single, not one, all-party meeting on social care. 4 months on from Wes Streeting's announcement of the commission aimed at building agreement between the main parties. They had talks which were scheduled for February the 26th. They were then postponed. The Lib Dems then said, right, we'll clear our diaries to make sure that we can reschedule these meetings, but no meeting has been agreed. Doubts now being expressed. This is the Daily Mail about Labour's promise to overhaul adult social care. As I said, the cross-party talks have yet to get off the ground. Wes Streeting himself has warned that if you don't reform social care, many more elderly people will be left without the care they need. The NHS will be overwhelmed, and yet nothing is going on. Joining me now is Joyce Pinfield, who's Vice Chair at the National Care Association and campaigner at Providers Unite. Good morning to you.
Morning.
This is so critical, isn't it? If we are truly going to reinvent the National Health Service and social care system, which we have to do, we desperately need to do, as people get older, we have to have exemplary social care. Without that, the NHS cannot possibly continue to exist in its current form.
Oh, absolutely. We're just fed up within social care of successive governments. This isn't just a recent problem. This has been a problem that's been going on for well over 20 years. And so it's been going from crisis to critical. And now we really are at crunch point due to, the increased costs, many, many more people wanting care. And of course, people now need far complex care needs that we've we've got to try and look after. When I first went into social care over 25 years ago, many people came into care homes for social reasons. Now we are more like mini hospitals. But this is where we really can help out the NHS. We have been upskilling our staff so that we can look after more people in nursing homes, care homes, and indeed in the community, that more people can be looked after in their own homes or in a residential care setting, therefore preventing people going into hospitals and blocking up the NHS. Of course, we can also help the NHS by solving that bed blocking problem. But successive governments, and then we came into this latest government promising a national care service. We then, in January, as you state, it was announced Baroness Casey was going to do a report. But unfortunately, that report isn't going to even have phase 1 until next year. And phase 2, which is the more sustainable part of that report, until 2028, which after all, that's only a year before the next election's due. So are any parties going to be interested in working together at that point to really sort out social care when we are really at this critical point at this moment in time? We're still waiting to see what happens at during this month with the increase in minimum wage, the increase in the national insurance, which has really hit all care providers, whatever they are, whether they are providing care, residential care, community care, learning disability care. It has really hit every single provider looking after our vulnerable elderly people and the younger adults that need care.
There was a great quote in one of the articles I read saying that what is going on behind the scenes is the ministers have essentially filed this on the it's far too difficult to actually even bother to cope with pile.
Oh, definitely. It's definitely in the too difficult pile. There's no political ambition, it appears, from parties to even try and solve this problem at all. Nobody's pushing for this cross-party political meeting. As you stated, there should have been one at the end of February, and I believe that to date, there's still not a date for that meeting to take place.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous because you're right, unless social care is sorted out, everything lands back in the NHS. Now,
yes.
The other problem we've got here is we have an increasingly, and in fact many ways we are the victim of our own success. So our medical interventions keep people alive longer. As a result of that, we need more social care. And yet if we don't deal with social care, nothing will ever change. And so that's why we're then seeing the bed blocking. Even if I go back, well, I trained, when did I qualify? 93. We had problems back in 1993 trying to discharge people out of hospital. And I used to do ward rounds every morning trying to find people who were fit enough to go home, but there wasn't the social care provision. Even if they were fit enough to go home, I couldn't get them out of the hospital because they didn't have slippers or anywhere warm to go or food available or whatever it was. And so therefore you got into that situation where those beds were blocked.
That's why many care homes and indeed community care does have vacancies to be able to take those people out of hospital. But the systems and processes that have to go to take people out of hospital into social care are just phenomenal, and so many hurdles that it does take much longer to, especially people who are needed funding care. To be able to get funding care, there's so many blocks to that. And of course, the funded care, the fees that care providers get are just ridiculously low.
Of course they are. And that was the other thing I was going to say, was that actually caring for someone is such an important thing to do in life, and yet we pay carers appallingly.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We don't value them, we don't pay them. We expect them to be highly trained, highly skilled. We expect them to take every responsibility for looking after the most vulnerable of society, and yet we pay them the minimum wage. And so this has hit us. And because of the pressures to providers on the finance side, because at the moment local authorities only seem to be giving an uplift of say 4 and 5%, and yet this year with the minimum wage and the national insurance problems, we're facing more like 11-12% increase in costs, and that's on top of last year when we had over a 10% increase in minimum wage. And yet the local authorities were only giving that type of uplift last year. So it's not just this year, it's been a compounded year upon year problem. And we do have to remember people in community care who are providing community care, their margins are just so narrow on the costs of giving that care, even at these low rates, to the funding that they get in. It is unsustainable.
So can I just ask, but sorry, because time is time, what is the answer here? Is it to provide more social care? Is it, and I think it was under the previous Conservative administration saying there would be a lifetime cap on the amount of social care? Is it that you need just more money? I mean, you must have talked about this a great deal because you are also part of Providers Unite, this grassroots coalition uniting all the community care and support providers. In your wildest dreams, do you see a solution in any sense?
I think that, for one thing, social care needs valuing. We're looking after the most vulnerable of society, and yet we're not valued. The second thing is if we can work closer with the NHS. Money is always piling into the NHS and let the problems not being solved there. Social care is the solution. So appreciate social care, put parity of wages with the NHS.
Yeah.
And that way we will be able to solve this massive problem and not have quite so many people who are desperate for care and simply can't get it.
Well, it's been a great pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much. I wish you a very happy Easter as well. That's Joyce Pinfield, their Vice Chair at the National Carer Association and campaigner at Providers Unite. It's time for a break. After the break, it's our Future Politics panel. Joining me this morning, Nathaniel Ogone, who is political commentator with Young Voices UK, and joining him, Fariza Babingavea. I'll get that right after this break. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Look, I don't know what Mr. Lowe is up to. What I do know is there is a police investigation. I do know that there is an investigation by the parliamentary authorities. Those will sort of carry on follow their course. But bluntly, we're just moving on. We are obviously we're working hard, campaigning around the country. And May the 1st is a very important day for all political parties, including Reform UK.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Talk Weekend Breakfast, 8:23 on Sunday, April the 20th. Loads of messages coming in this morning. Peter, good morning to you. Good morning, David. Anyone damaging or defacing public statues should feel the full force of the law, such as it is. I agree. But I doubt these trans thugs will be punished once you let these thugs get away with these crimes. More will think they can too. This also, David, goes back to the Bristol statue thugs. That's right, Colston. As far as I know, no one was ever penalised for that. Says it all about our two-tier justice system. It also says something about rewriting history, actually, as well. I noticed in Docklands in West India Quay, changes to the statues because, of course, it doesn't fit with how we want to view history. Well, guess what? It happened. Good morning, David. Great show. We were talking about the half-human, half-marathon... Sorry, half-human, half-robot, half-marathon by some of those robots that were half cut, as Charlie Rowley said. It's no innovation, David, that, according to David in Newcastle. We have a half-human, half-robot running the country. Very droll. Hi, David. This is Richie in Sussex. About the gender ruling, the Supreme Court ruling that we were talking about. And also I was talking about this front page, which is in the Sunday Times. The deluge of hate mail that's been given to these poor people. All those disgusting people sending the hate mail with hateful plaques at demonstrations must be arrested, they must be prosecuted, they must be locked up. It's disgusting behaviour. A woman is a person born female. There's no two ways about it. It is amazing, actually. I was just looking back at the record on trans ideology. In 2022, Keir Starmer said trans women are women. And that is not my view. That is the law. No, it isn't. It's been the law through the combined effects of the 2004 Gender Recognition Act and 2010 Equality Act. Like to see what he's saying now. That would be very interesting, won't it? Then others, David Lammy, there are some dinosaurs on the right, and the dinosaurs exist in our own party who want to hoard rights when discussing trans rights. I'm on the side of the minority community. Yvette Cooper in 2022 refused 3 times to say to Times Radio, our sister radio station, what a woman is, saying she was not going to get into a rabbit hole. What has that got to do with being a woman, being in a rabbit hole? Loads of others here as well. I'll go through some of those a little later on, but now it's time for the Future Politics panel.
The Future Politics panel.
Well, joining me this morning, Nathaniel Gunny, who's a political commentator with Young Voices UK, and joining him is Fraser Balgin-Veya.
Almost.
I get in there. It's every week I do it differently. Good morning to the two of you.
Good morning.
Shall we start with this big story here about Zelensky, Putin? This is the front page of the Sunday Telegraph today. Putin shatters own truce. We heard this yesterday, that basically Zelensky has accused Moscow of failing to uphold an Easter truce announced by Putin. Putin said we're going to have a 24-hour ceasefire to celebrate the holiday, and of course that wasn't actually kept to at all. Let me ask you the question, if I may, that I'm asking everyone this morning, just in terms of a sort of broad brush perspective. Who do you trust the most out of these two? Zelensky, Putin, neither, both?
Undoubtedly, it has to be Zelensky, right? Undoubtedly, it has to be Zelensky.
Why?
I think you look at the heroism of Ukraine and the fate of their invasion. You look back at the time of the invasion, it was thought that Ukraine wouldn't hold out for more than 6 weeks. Now we're a few years in, and they're still managing to repel their attacks. There was the ceasefire that Putin sort of talked about. I don't think that's sort of been upheld by Russian forces. I think there have been drone attacks in the Ukrainian capital. I think there have been artillery attacks elsewhere. And so we consider this as someone who isn't sticking by his word on the Russian
well, that's a really important point. Is it that Putin isn't sticking by his word, or is it actually he's lost control of some of those forces? Because just going back to that original point you made, Putin believed he could take over those territories of Ukraine very quickly. The war would be over very, very quickly. Of course, he's been proved wrong. I think he underestimated the Ukrainian forces. And I just wonder whether actually underneath him there are people who are disobeying his orders. They can see that the writing is on the wall for Putin, or is it actually that Putin actually never ever intended to keep his promise?
Well, it's probably somewhere between the two. I think we can see that Putin hasn't kept his promises when he's made previous promises about not invading Ukraine in the past. So we can see that he doesn't keep his own promises. Equally, it's possible he's losing control of his forces in the region. It's possible that there are people below him that aren't listening. I think that points to him not being a strong leader. I think that points to him, losing control of an army he's supposed to be running.
Fariza, do you trust Vladimir Putin?
No, I don't trust Vladimir Putin. But to be fair, I don't necessarily trust Zelensky, unfortunately, because I think
that's interesting. I've had lots of other people saying that. Why?
Well, coming from a post-Soviet country, I kind of know how it works in there, and I think a lot of...
Just explain that to people who haven't met you before.
I come from Kazakhstan, which is a post-Soviet country, and there's a lot of conspiracies going around as to how Zelensky came into power in the first place. Because growing up, I mean, I saw him on TV. He was doing stand-up comedy. He was doing all of that, and then all of a sudden, he's done a bit, kind of like an SNL equivalent.
Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, of him being a president of Ukraine, and then suddenly a few years later, there he is. So it's just kind of, I don't think it's the smartest move to have someone who is not a politician to be running a country.
Well, hang on a minute. You had an actor, Ronald Reagan, running America.
Well, we have Donald Trump right now running America, and that's also not necessarily very great in my opinion. But I just think that right now how he's dealing with the war is respectful, and the way he's handling it is way more respectful than Putin. And the fact is that no one really disobeys Putin in Russia and people under him. That's not a thing that's happening. Because
well,
if
I don't think you would survive, would you?
If you disobey him, if you don't listen to what he wants to say, to what he wants to do, then you're out of there. Probably out of Russia too, if you want to survive.
What's driving Putin?
I think it's his ego. I think this is nothing more than a power play to him. This is him showing the world that if a ceasefire is going to take place, it's going to be because he wants a ceasefire and no one else.
Can I just ask you about Donald Trump here? We saw J.D. Vance yesterday, didn't we, saying, look, if there's no deal, we're out. We're literally out. And I was just asking this morning as well, if the US does back away and the mineral deal looks like it is going to be signed and completed, so America will help in the post-war rebuild of Ukraine. But do you think then if America backs down, and Vance's words were, we've got other things to worry about, does it then change the world perception on the States? They then become either a bystander in what is going on, or they become a cheerleader for Russia?
So I suppose we have to take a step back and look at the broader support for Ukraine, right? Particularly in this country, we've had a lot of support for Ukraine. In the early days of the war, we had Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. He made a few visits there.
Well, he was the first one, wasn't he? Really?
Yes, I think he was, actually. He made a few visits there very early in his tenure. Rishi Sunak did the same. We also saw the same from Keir Starmer. And I think many Brits are sort of proud of the role that we've played there, where while we may not be as large as the United States, I think we've still had a lot of strong support for Ukraine, and support from Ukraine has come from elsewhere in Europe. I think while there's been questions over the US position, while the US have been calling for a ceasefire and a negotiated minerals deal and all of that, I think the European position has been relatively unchanged.
Well, that is true, and it isn't true. But just in terms of the European response, they're scrabbling around, aren't they?
I think right now it's just it's really hard to tell, because with the US and with the world right now, not necessarily understanding whether or not a ceasefire is going to be reached. Because obviously the Ukraine wants a ceasefire. Zelensky has made it pretty clear before. But Putin,
does he?
Well, not anymore. But before, it was very clear that he was wanting to and he was willing to, because he said, I'm done with people losing their lives. And that's just... And I think it's embarrassing from the US side saying that we're getting tired. Marco Rubio saying we're going to walk away because there's no progress. I mean, in the first place, when Donald Trump was saying that he's going to deal with this conflict in under 24 hours, was just laughable to me. I mean, coming from a post-Soviet country, yet again, I'm just saying, this has been going on for decades. You know, the Cold War and every tension, it was building up for decades, and it doesn't matter who's in power in the US. It would have happened. And just saying that he's going to deal with it in under 24 hours is not true.
So in your experience, and you're far closer to this than the rest of us, this is the bit I can't understand. If you come to a ceasefire and you allow Putin to keep the land that he has illegally invaded, if you put some sort of buffer zone in, What message does that send to Putin? Surely it emboldens him that he can take other parts of other countries.
That's exactly what is driving him all these years. I mean, post-Soviet countries, we can't necessarily say no to Mr. Putin. We can't really... No, because that's just how it works. I mean, one might think that we left the Soviet Union, but it doesn't really come across that way when you're actually living in it. We're not necessarily dependent on them, but if he does think that all of a sudden he wants a part of this country, we will fight back. But the chances of us winning are pretty low because the world isn't going to care forever about a small guy because there's a big bully in the building, and that's Putin. And he's probably going to win, unfortunately.
If you were in a position of power, and let's say you're the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, which I'm sure you will be at some point, what would you do? What would your strategy be now? Would you continue to support Ukraine? Do you see the future as the coalition of the willing with Europe? Do you see the future is to have a special relationship with Trump?
Well, I think you sort of do both at the same time. I think we can have a strong relationship with Trump. I think he's coming for a state visit, perhaps in September, but I think dates are...
Yeah, he's loving that.
Yes, yeah. And I think it's the first time that we've offered a second-term US president a state visit.
It is.
So in the past, they've come and they've had tea, I think, at Windsor Castle, or sort of lower key things, but now he's got a state visit for a second term. Obviously, there's been a gap between the first and the two.
That's the beauty of the soft power of the United Kingdom.
Well, quite. You know, we get to roll the royal family out, we get to do the military ceremonies, we get to do the fly past, and it's a genuinely special thing. It's a thing that we can offer that no other country can. But coming back to the Ukraine question, I think it's important that we continue to support Ukraine. I think the Prime Minister announced the raise to defence spending 2.5% of GDP not too long ago.
It needs to be higher, it needs to be 5%, but yeah.
So there's I think a pledge to get it to 3% by the end of this parliament or something like that. But there is an ambition to sort of raise it further. I think there's a national security strategy coming out in June. So I think the thinking is going on in government. They are thinking about how we can do this.
But you see, I think your problem is that in Europe, if we are going to be part of the coalition of the willing of Europe, you actually have very disparate countries with very disparate aspirations and what they actually want to achieve. And I think also the immediacy comes far more from the countries on the east who can see Russia literally over the fence. They're far more worried about what is going on. Do you think that Europe is actually united?
So I think we're united against Russian aggression, certainly. I think whatever capital you go to, whatever meeting you sit in, you will hear there is unity against Russian aggression.
I hear a lot from the EU.
Where there is, I think, a difference perhaps is in the strength of feeling or in the resources that people are willing to dedicate to it. So whereas, as I say, we've dedicated a lot of our resources, both military and humanitarian, whereas we've been able to convene other countries in support of Ukraine, I think other countries have been slightly more reticent to express.
That is brilliant political speaking. I have to pause there for a moment. Thanks so much for your insight as well, you know, obviously living it as well. Thank you for the moment. We'll continue with our Future Politics panel after this break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're in the middle of our Future Politics panel with Nathaniel Agani and also with Fariza Balgimbafeya, which I've probably said wrong again. Let's talk about what is going on, the Supreme Court ruling, and finally we know what a woman is, even though the Prime Minister doesn't still seem to know what a woman is. Now, we had that, and we had these amazing calls yesterday from people. I had one from a trans woman who talked about what it means for her background, how she'd been intimidated and threatened and assaulted in a male changing room, and what I was saying was that I hope this now gives security and protection to trans people. Well, that's not how this is, and she agreed with that. That's not how this is being viewed. Police are investigating after statues were targeted with graffiti. Thousands of trans rights activists crowded into central London. The trans rights groups, trade unions, haven't they got anything else to do? Community organisations came together for what was billed as an emergency demonstration in Parliament Square in Westminster. They demanded trans liberation and trans rights row. They were waving flags, talking about the Palestinian trans fight. That's an oxymoron. Anyway, graffiti was written on the statues of suffragette leader Millicent Fawcett, South African statesman Jan Christian Smuts in Parliament Square. They're talking about that trans people must never be overlooked. Have they just... The ruling is really clear. This is about what is a woman, what is a man, and this is based on biological sex, not gender. I don't understand why the trans lobby, which has become very, very big, by the way, makes up 0.05% of the population, what they are trying to achieve here. They say queer people have been through worse than this before. This is not a ruling against trans people. This is a ruling to protect everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, so to be clear, the Supreme Court ruling from earlier this week is about biological sex in the law according to the Equalities Act 2010, and it's about excluding people with gender recognition certificates from single-sex spaces if necessary. So there's not been some sort of blanket ruling against transgender people.
Correct.
It's not as though there's been substantial changes in that regard. What it is saying, however, is if it's necessary to protect people, you can follow the law as it says, right? And this is a clarification.
I don't think it does say that. I say this is the law, and now the companies and organisations will have to follow the law. But it's not like an opt-in, opt-out.
But my point is that it's if necessary. So the Supreme Court ruling said that it's legal to exclude people if necessary.
Well, it is necessary to protect women and children, isn't it?
But then that's a judgment that you can make, and that's a judgment organisations can, of course, make. But my point is that the Supreme Court ruling is a clarification of the law. The Supreme Court aren't creating policy. They haven't sort of sat somewhere and dreamed this up. No. They're just telling you what MPs passed into law in 2010, right? And if these lobby groups would like to change the law, then they're more than welcome to stand for election.
But why did in 2022, why did Keir Starmer say trans women are women, and that is not my view, that's the law? Well, he's wrong. He's a barrister.
And it's a shame that a lawyer would get the law wrong, right? But I think at the heart of the matter, the Supreme Court have recognised what the law is. The point, I think, here is that law should be made in Parliament as it was, and it should be respected as it was made in Parliament. It's not as though there's been a ruling against trans people here. What the law has been, what's happened is the law's clarified.
How did we get in this blinking great mess where we had multiple sexes, 100+ genders, where everyone sort of sat back, scratched their heads and thought, I have no idea what's going on here? Also, I'm just going to put this to you as well. There's an article in the Daily Mail today. Labour ministers are secretly plotting to defy the landmark court ruling that men who change gender are not legally women. What?
I mean, that's not necessarily shocking to me. I think they're going to try their best to kind of keep the vote of the minorities and kind of try to appeal to everyone, because for them this is about politics. This, unfortunately,
so they don't really care.
I think not. I think for them this is literally just about politics, keeping their vote, appealing to everyone. Whereas for me this is about womanhood. You know, this is about me. This is about my sisters, my mom, and my future daughter, and everything. Because I don't know how we got to this place where the magic of womanhood was literally just taken away and it was turned into something inclusive, woke, and grey. Like, they were calling a mother, a birthing person. To me, that is just...
But it wasn't anyone doing that. It was the NHS calling them birthing people. The NHS is meant to understand what biological sex is.
I agree with you. I think it's important and it's vital to be inclusive and make everyone feel safe. But that also includes women, believe it or not. That also includes making us feel safe and heard, and not disregarding what we have to go through in order to be an actual woman and to go through puberty and all the hormonal changes naturally. Sure. And that takes a lot, and especially it takes a lot to give birth and be a mother.
Do you think, let me ask you this, so if you broaden this out from here, have we reached peak woke now? Do you think that actually now, I mean, I saw that really and I was like, thank goodness there's a grown-up in the room at last. Have we reached peak woke, generally?
I think so. I think we have, and I think that comes from just the social media and a lot of the things just being... We are surrounded by lust, I think, nowadays, and people are so lost with everything that's available for you. You go on TikTok, you go on Instagram, everywhere you go, you just don't know where you belong anymore, and I think that's what led to where we are. And it's okay, because that just happens. Over time, I think people are going to be changing. People's wants and needs are going to be changing, and I think at one point we're going to go back to being more traditional. A little bit still inclusive, though, because that's just the reality of life, and I think it's important to make everyone feel safe. But that's just the reality. We just got here because of evolution of life, I guess.
I think we got here because organisations like Stonewall had almost achieved what they wanted to do, equality for gay and lesbian people, and then they suddenly needed to reinvent themselves, hitch themselves to the trans bandwagon, and then kept themselves alive. Let me just ask you about this, though, because the General Medical Council, which is the body that oversees doctors like me, is pressing ahead with its new policy of making it voluntary for doctors to record their gender or sex. So the General Medical Council keeps a record of the gender of all registered doctors in Britain. It is meant to mean the sex you are as a doctor. So the regulator is now in the process of making it voluntary so that you can record on it what you want in terms of the gender that you most feel that you align with. Now, my issue with this is that if you're a woman, let's say, and you say, I would like a female doctor, you don't know if that person is a female doctor because the regulator doesn't know whether that's a female doctor.
So I think Keir Starmer has a sort of war on regulators, so perhaps he needs to turn his attention to the GMC. But I think there is a serious point there about the politicisation of what should be independent bodies, what should be bodies that are following the law. There is a broader point here, which is often made in a party political sense. I suppose now we're making it in a slightly different one. But it's often clear that these bodies take on minds of their own. They act in ways that are either outside of the law or not the way the law was originally intended. They show political bias or indeed ideological bias, and so that's wrong. We need to root that out anywhere we find that, whether that is within the NHS, whether that's with the GMC, whether that's with other regulators.
And actually, I think there's going to be a challenge, isn't there, for organisations generally, because I think they've gone so far down the line. I'm thinking Barclays, Ernst & Young, all of these people who've made inclusivity and diversity kind of their lifeblood, and that's fine, but now they're going to have to work out how they unpick some of their policies.
Well, I think their first responsibility is to their shareholders. People give you capital to start a business, people give you capital to grow a business, and they expect a return on their money.
Do you think that will change the way that corporations are managed and governed, and the governance of those organisations?
I'm not so sure. I don't think it's going to change a lot of things, unfortunately, because people aren't used to hearing the word no. People aren't used to not being able to do whatever the hell they please. And I just think that chaos and protests and people disrespecting that new law and the court ruling is going to happen, whether we like it or not, I think.
Do you?
100%. It's going to happen. People aren't used to being told, no, you can't do this, you can't do that.
Why aren't they?
Well, because all these years, I mean, the past few years specifically, it was just a push and a push for more and more and more and shoving women aside and doing what they please. I mean, this new thing that a woman is not going to know whether or not her doctor is a female or not. That's not a great thing, and that's not protecting.
I mean, it's appalling.
It's appalling because you don't know what that woman went through. You don't know why she wants a female doctor, and I just think that it's hard, and we're gonna need to prepare for a lot of chaos and a lot of protests and a lot of backlash. That's just the reality.
Okay, thank you very much for the moment, champs. We'll go to a break. We'll continue with our Future Politics panel after this break.
No, we can't, but we need to address our prison system, because at the moment, from what it looks like, it's almost a holiday. They get PlayStations, they get education, they get 3 square meals a day. They may not be the meals that you or I would want to choose, Peter, but they're being fed. They're not paying rates, they're not paying electricity bills, they're not paying for the things that the rest of us are having to deal with on a daily basis. And we as taxpayers are contributing to this somewhat cushy life that many of them are experiencing.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Talk. I'm in the middle of a conversation with Nathaniel and Fariza. We're in the middle of our future politics panel. Let me ask you about this, because young people are increasingly important in terms of the way the political parties are trying to engage with young people, the advent of Instagram and TikTok and all these social media platforms and so on. Now, this is a great article in The Guardian I mentioned to Charlie earlier. Senior Labour figures are urging Keir Starmer to take a leaf out of Donald Trump's book and make more frequent media appearances in an attempt to dominate the political agenda, just like the US president does. They say they want the Prime Minister to act more like Trump. He upends political convention, he speaks from the cuff, he calls into TV talk shows like this one and just tells them about policy. Is this the strategy for Keir Starmer? Because he is a bit, well, boring, isn't he?
To be honest, I'm not sure that's necessarily a path that Keir Starmer should follow.
Why not?
I think what young people want from politics, certainly what I want from politics, is cheap housing. I'd like, lots of building in London. I'd like to get somewhere to rent with friends. I'd like a good job. I'd like things like that, right? So when I go to that, I think there needs to be a bit more substance than presentation. I think, you can't sort of tax your way to prosperity, and there have been tax rises recently. So I think it's about giving young people especially,
so you want substance,
the chance to succeed. Yeah.
Right. And in terms of the parties and the leaders that you believe in, what do you look for? Is it someone who is a bit boring and just says it as it is? I mean, so what I'm getting at is that many years ago, when we didn't have 24-hour news cycles, the way that political parties ran was they had a media grid. On that media grid, they would then give you a one-pager. These are the lines to stick to. You can still see some politicians do it. And Labour actually is guilty as any, because they keep coming out with the same phrases. Working people, for example, which comes out every 5 seconds. But the world has changed. And I'm just wondering what it is that attracts you as a young person to politicians, particularly.
I think for me, it's really important for a politician to be diplomatic, to be able to hold his own and deal with absolutely anything that comes his way, whether or not it's negative backlash from something that people don't agree with, because let's face it, that is happening everywhere. People are never happy fully. And I just need someone to be a leader of a country who's not making a spectacle out of everything, like Donald Trump. To me, I think Keir Starmer following the footsteps of Donald Trump would be my worst nightmare. I mean, Donald Trump, he's on TV more of the time than he's not on TV.
True.
And the fact is, after his meeting with Zelensky in the Oval Office, he said at the end of it, at least we've made great TV. That's not what you want to hear from a politician. That's not what you want to hear from the leader of the country, in my opinion. Also, what I don't like about Donald Trump is the fact that people constantly have to fact check everything he says. So
yeah, he makes stuff up.
But that's the thing, and he gets away with it because, oh well, that's just Trump.
But
that's just who he is.
I think many politicians make things up.
But not like that. When he's spinning it into, oh, America will be woke no longer, and he uses an example of, oh, we're giving away $8 million to transgender minds.
Are you right? Am I right in thinking you trust Putin more than Trump?
Absolutely not.
Right.
I don't trust Putin.
Does he make stuff up?
he makes stuff up because the country that he's in lets him, and people around, and the countries around Russia are going to let him do whatever he wants to do,
Okay,
unfortunately.
but in this country, right, so all the political parties want your vote. I have never seen this before, but young people now so exercised about politics, which I think is a brilliant thing. So using things like TikTok and Instagram and talking to young people in a medium they understand, because they're not necessarily going to sit down and read the Sunday Times, but they are going to be in the doom scroll loop on their phone, going through various things. What sort of thing grabs your attention from a politician? Is it someone where you believe that they're authentic and reliable, that they speak, you can actually see behind their eyes, or is it someone who's a bit dull and monotonous and just tells you a message?
It's someone who tells the truth, because that's the most important part, and also who can do it in a very well manner. Someone who can deliver the facts so that people understand. You also don't want to hear all the smart words that most of the people, let's be honest, especially young people on TikTok, they're not going to be attracted to all these like fancy political words. They need something that's going to be concise and to the point. But I mean, Donald Trump is another extreme, and Starmer is, I mean, it's no surprise, and it's obviously not a secret that the Labour they need better communication, they need better social media, they need better social skills in general. And I think a lot of the things that they're trying to do are not necessarily bad. They're trying to fix this country, but the way they're sending the message, especially towards young people, they're really making them choose the right-wing parties, especially like Reform and, well, Trump in the US.
Which political party do you think has the best communication strategy for young people?
Gosh, so I think Reform has obviously had some cut through with young people, particularly online. You look at sort of the number of followers that Nigel Farage has on TikTok,
2 million,
and it's incredible, right? But I suppose the social media part is only one bit of it. I look at Kemi Badenoch, leader of the Tory party, and I think actually she has a very compelling comms strategy. She talks very directly. She talks quite simply. Whenever Kemi speaks, you're never in doubt as to what she thinks. You may disagree, and that's a separate thing. But I think she's very direct.
Any oomph.
No,
I want to wind her up and say, come on, let's get on with it.
No, I think she's quite good. I heard her speaking not too long ago about net zero, talking about Labour's net zero policies and things like that. And I thought that was quite good. I remember hearing her at Tory Party conference late last year.
Is she the right leader for the Tories?
Yeah, definitely. I think she's a woman for the moment.
Is she now?
She's the woman for the moment.
Okay, I'm just going to ask you very quickly because time is tight. This is about Billy Idol. You will have no idea who Billy Idol is, but I listened to Billy Idol when I was growing up. An amazing musician with White Wedding, loads of other big hits like Rebel Yell, for example. Dave nodding along in the gallery there. He says, I'm the sexy sexagenarian. He's 69 at the moment. I'm going to be the sexy septuagenarian. Can you be 70 and sexy?
I think so. If that's what you believe in, if you're confident, I mean, if you age like fine wine and you think that you did, well, good for you.
Good for you. Can you be 70 and sexy?
Well, I'm a liberal, so I believe in letting people do whatever the hell they like.
No, but that's not the answer, is it?
I was going to say, actually...
Oh, very good.
Sexy is a state of mind. Sexy is a state of mind. It's
isn't.
not so well. It's not. I don't think it's about whatever.
You say that person's sexy. You know, I assume you do.
You don't know what I do in my spare time, but I think it's about. I think it's a state of mind.
Can you be sexy in 70?
Yes, you can.
Hurrah! We got there in the end. Thank you very much to both of you, to Nathaniel Leguni, political commentator with Young Voices UK, and Farisa Balgin Purveyor, which probably I still haven't said right. Thank you very much. That was this morning's Future Politics panel.
The Future Politics panel.
Right, keep your messages coming in, please. David, this is Louise. Great Future Politics panel with the trans debate. I feel it's the socialist workers and unions realising the chaos they can cause by playing the victim card to get a platform. Then come the unrealistic demands. I fear globalist intervention is fueling the chaos. It's divide and conquer, David. That's Louise. Thank you for that. Good morning, David. Superb, as usual. Thank you. That's very kind. Honesty will never catch on in the mainstream media, though. Peak woke. I wish some woke legal clown will find a loophole and create a route for trans to leak back into the headlines. It's a guarantee that the public sector authorities will now go to gender-neutral toilets. They will never pursue women's rights over trans rights. The whole thing is absolutely disgusting. And loads more as well. I want to talk about those in just a minute, about defacing public statues, the trans lobbies as well. After the break, I'm going to be joined by Michael Moschbacher, who is the associate editor at The Telegraph, because it will be time for our Week in Politics. This is an item where I ask a contributor who, in their opinion, has had a good week, who has had a bad week, who should we look at for the week ahead, and quite frankly, who is the person who should have a week off? That's coming up after this break. I'm also going to be talking to Rupert Bell as well. We've got lots of big royal stories doing the rounds. We're going to be talking about the royals at Easter, amongst other things. And Meghan Markle, she's being accused of ripping off a British author's book series for a feminist Netflix show. Shocking.
We've just been talking in the office here about how many of us have been attacked at some point or other by some form of flying beast or any wildlife. I mean, so we'll take your stories this morning.
Hello, this story is concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino?
Right? Yeah,
okay.
rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like something out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field." Put your foot down, this rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting his front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich. Don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, cripes, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as a family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years ago. Spurred? How do you get spurred by a rooster?
And one here from Dan in Hampshire. Morning, Mike. Is an Aussie that has been dive bombed by our version.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, a very good morning to you just after 9 o'clock on this Easter Sunday morning. I wish you a very happy Easter wherever you're celebrating around the country or indeed around the world. Maybe you skipped off for an Easter holiday as well. Happy birthday also to Gabriella, my set-up producer, who's getting younger with every passing hour. She's now 23. Great news, as I say, it's Easter Sunday today. It's the most important festival in the Christian calendar. It celebrates Jesus rising from the dead 3 days after his crucifixion.
Happy Easter to you.
Beautifully done. It's the Peter Lee World Egg Jarping competition today. Is it? Yes, that's right. It's a competition to see whose boiled egg is the hardest. You do that by tapping them together until one of them breaks. It's now practiced all over the world, but the championship home is Peter Lee in County Durham.
One little Easter egg, see me run. I ate the last one, then there were none.
Well, if you eat the last one, there will be none, won't there? Also, it's Look-alike Day today, a day that celebrates people who look like you. So keep a beady eye out today for your doppelganger.
Baby, don't lie, it's just a look-alike.
Very good. Doppelganger. I sounded more Swedish than German then, I think, when I did that, but it's still a brilliant word. Right, let's move on to this hour's fascinating facts.
Today's fascinating facts.
On this day in 1981, Steve Davis became the world snooker champion at 23 years of age, beating Doug Mountjoy at Sheffield on the 17th of April 2016. He announced his retirement, age 58. Wow, he won 6 world titles, 28 ranking titles, putting him joint second on the all-time list. On this day in 1989, scientists said the Earth had narrowly missed being struck by a passing asteroid, weighing 400 million tons. That's quite big, isn't it? Oh, wow. On this day in 1992, a brilliant comedian, and you could never show his work today. But anyway, I thought he was absolutely brilliant and formed a very important part of my life growing up. Benny Hill, English comedian, died between the end of World War II and the dawn of television. He worked as a radio performer. His film credits include parts in 9 films. What were they? Well, they were Those Magnificent Men in Their Flying Machines, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, he was in that as well, The Italian Job. But for me, he will always be remembered for the world-famous Benny Hill Show, which ran for nearly 4 decades and remained a cult series in much of the world long after Hill's death. As I said, you just couldn't broadcast that now, could you, Dave? No, you couldn't. Did you remember Benny Hill Show? Wasn't it brilliant? Very funny, patting the little bald man on the head, which you probably can't do anymore either. And on this day in 2016, the Queen visited the Royal Mail Windsor delivery office to mark the 500th anniversary of the postal service. By the way, in 1516, Henry VIII knighted Brian Tuke, the first master of the post, in an act which became the catalyst for the creation of the Royal Mail. And those are this hour's fascinating facts.
David Bull's breakfast, oh what a treat. Gather around, it can't be beat. Wake up your senses, let's celebrate. Easter vibes flowing, it's never too late.
Well, a very good morning to you on this fine Easter Sunday. 6 minutes past 9 now. On Sunday, April the 20th. Let's just whiz through the front pages this morning. The Sunday Telegraph. Zelensky says Putin has shattered his own truce. Of course, Putin called for a truce over the Easter holiday. That did not materialise. Also, on the right-hand side here, talking about the trans activist defacing the statue of the feminist hero Fawcett. I mean, what utter madness. And the fact is, the Supreme Court ruling was very clear. It meant that what it says is women are biological women. That is how you define what a woman is. So now Keir Starmer should know what a woman is. The Sunday Times, victory in the Supreme Court, then a deluge of hate mail. This is absolutely abhorrent to read, actually. The campaigners who won that Supreme Court battle have been inundated with death threats, misogynistic abuse since the judgment. They've had messages sent to the organisation's email, included one receiving hours after that, saying you're a group of disgusting murderers and deserve death. God will rip you from your family one day and nobody will mourn you. Your inhumanity makes me vomit. You stupid women should feel so deeply ashamed for being so stupid. Thankfully, they also have some great messages as well. This is interesting. Nigel Farage is backing more nationalisation. He said he would sit down and talk to the trade union leaders tomorrow if he was Prime Minister, and suggested he would support nationalising other industries as well. This comes on the back of the nationalisation, or where we think we're going, with British Steel and, of course, Ginjay, and trying to keep a Virgin Steel plant alive. Now, in terms of that Supreme Court judgment, by the way, ministers don't like it. They're in a WhatsApp group trying to decide how they're going to overturn that ruling. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. They're meant to be servants of the people. It's absolutely ridiculous. The Mirror, by the way, I never did this earlier. More than 80 people a day are being savaged by out-of-control dog. Police stats show attacks on the rise in every county in this country. Now, I'm particularly upset about this. This one, which is The Sun on Sunday, a sister publication, because they told me who's won The Apprentice, and I haven't seen the final. I don't care if it was on Wednesday. I still haven't seen it. Anyway, Apprentice stars rogue trader probe, apparently. If you haven't seen this final, look away. But The Apprentice champ... I haven't... Anyway, The Apprentice champ Dean Franklin is at the centre of a rogue trader probe over his show-winning business. Millions saw him triumph last week, impressing Lord Sugar with his aircon firm ADL. I quite liked him, actually. Essex-based Dean, 34, is accused of not having a key licence for 17 months. An MP, not even named, says this is an embarrassment for the BBC. Good on him. And then the Daily Star, old bangers get Brits all revved up. Wow. Brits are being driven around the bend by their old cars. Millions of us have admitted thinking about backseat romps. Wow. Happy Sunday. Now, let's move on and move back to politics. This is the section of the show where every Sunday I ask, who do you think has had a good week? Who do you think has had a bad week? Who should we watch in the week ahead? And also, quite frankly, who should have a week off? Well, joining me now is Michael Moschbacher, who's Associate Editor at The Telegraph. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Can I just get your thoughts, please, if I may, on the Supreme Court ruling? And then you see the trans activists defacing statues, blatantly disregarding the law, thinking they're above the law. And also, actually, this extraordinary story, I think it's the front page of the Mail, saying ministers are in a WhatsApp plot to defy a trans ruling. I mean, the whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. Finally, we know a woman is a biological woman. Who knew?
Exactly. Yeah, it's been a sort of magnificent week for J.K. Rowling. She's been campaigning on this and backing these campaigners for years now. She's had the cast announced for the new remake of the Harry Potter films by HBO, and now this court win on last week. It's the exact implications of the court win. There's some disputes to precisely what it means about facilities, whether this means what this means for Lose, let's say, whether this means a third option will have to be offered or not. But still, it's a great victory for common sense, for establishing that sex is biological sex, for establishing that, at the very least, organisations are able to exclude people if they're not born women or born men. And I mean, it's absolutely sensible. And just imagine if it had gone the other way. I mean, the courts we really would despair at our courts.
We would. I mean, just looking back, in 2022, Keir Starmer said trans women are women, and that is not my view, it's the law. No, it wasn't.
Exactly. Precisely. It was misinterpreted. The EHRC, the Equalities Commission, is actually have got a chairman who's very much on, for one, just one of these quangos, which has got a very sensible chairman who's pushing absolutely in the right direction.
Yes.
But the Labour previously tried to replace her, that she's been reappointed for 1 year. And let's see how that goes. Let's see if she gets their way, or to what extent Labour's going to try and backtrack on this and push back and promote a trans agenda.
It's interesting, this story, though, in the Mail here. Ministers in a WhatsApp plot to defy the trans ruling. Labour ministers are secretly plotting to defy the landmark court ruling that men who change gender are not legally women. There is actually a printout of that WhatsApp. I don't know if you've seen it, but Angela Eagles says, let's meet about this when we get back from Easter to decide a way forwards. The ruling is not as catastrophic as it seems, but the EHRC guidance must be. There are already signs that some bodies are overreacting. Chris Murray says, definitely agree, a meeting early next week would be good. Steve Race said, I thought the EHRC chair on Today saying the ruling meant trans women could not use single-sex female facilities or compete in women's sports was pretty appalling this morning. And Chris Bryant saying agreed. What?
Absolutely. The EHRC's chair, Baroness Faulkner, who was a Lib Dem but then was appointed by the Tories to the position, is excellent, has very strong views on this, and even before this ruling, they were sending out new guidelines. They've got new draft guidelines, 300 pages of guidelines on all sorts of things, but including this, which are much more sensible, much more in tune with biology. But let's see, I predict that could be a huge bust-up. I mean, if Labour MPs try and reverse the ruling in some way, and there
would be all-out warfare if they try and overturn that ruling.
Correct, yeah. No, I think that's absolutely right. Be total, huge new political row. And why would... It also shows how blinkered these Labour MPs are, because there's literally no votes in trans rights, are there? Or, no. They're such minute numbers compared to people who just look at this and think, God, this is completely insane.
Well, I think it's more than that, actually. I think people want protection of girls and women in their own spaces. Actually, I think it's also about protection of men and male spaces and boys, too.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it's just... it's not just a hard sell, it's just an impossible sell for Labour if they want to push, if they want to backtrack on this. And if they do, it just shows such blinkered ideological obsession that they deserve everything they'll get, frankly.
Well, can I ask you also about these trans activists who took to the streets yesterday defacing statues of Churchill, tying his hands together in a pride flag, defacing the statue of Millicent Fawcett, and shouting things like trans Palestine? Let's just pause and have a look at the scenes that unfurled yesterday.
One struggle, one fight, Palestine trans rights. 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 One struggle, one fight, Palestine trans rights.
I suggest they go to Palestine and see if Palestinian trans rights exist.
Indeed, I don't think Hamas are great fans of trans rights.
No.
It's not high up on their agenda.
What does that show to you about their grasp of detail?
I mean, there's just absolutely no grasp at all. I mean, there's endless cases of gay people being killed by Hamas. There's endless sort of guard there. They want to establish a theocratic, medieval theocratic regime in Gaza. They don't. Trans rights isn't part of the package.
No, it isn't. And also, I saw a picture of J.K. Rowling. I mean, she's certainly, you mentioned right at the beginning, she's had a great week. Did you see the picture of her on her rather small yacht?
I did indeed, yeah. Celebrating. Good stuff.
Good stuff. Yeah. She had a cigar, I think, and a rather splendid cocktail on a very big yacht. I was very jealous indeed. So she's had a good week. Who's had a bad week?
Donald Trump. He promised, what was his big pledge? The war with Ukraine would end within 24 hours. Easter was an absolute deadline. There'd be peace by Easter. He'd be up for the Nobel Prize this year. And what's he achieved? Ukraine still there's a short Easter ceasefire, but basically nothing's been achieved so far.
Well, that hasn't held either.
Exactly. Middle East, again, promised very quick progress. Nothing there. There's now fears that he's now started talks with Iran, but the fears there are he's going to agree a sort of Obama-style soft deal with Iran. None of that peace agenda has worked. And what's going to happen? He somehow thinks, whatever we think about these people who are being expelled from America, the courts have ordered him to stop. And this isn't like some left-wing. This isn't full of left-wing judges. These are the courts full of Trump appointees. These are sort of well-known conservative judges have said, you can't do this, and he's trying to ignore them. So it's a slightly ridiculous situation. But, I mean, for all his bravura performance, easiest deal in the world, 24 hours, where have we got to? Nowhere. So he hasn't achieved anything.
So he's had a bad week. Who should we keep an eye on?
Nigel Farage. We've got elections coming up. This will be the first big test in the 1.5 weeks away, 1st of May. Reforms obviously leading the polls or level pegging at the top of the polls. It's looking outstanding for the party. It's had a huge breakthrough. But I think this is probably some of the most... the by-election and the local elections are probably some of the most important for a generation, because are we properly, because this will be the real test. In the past, you'll know as well as anyone, Nigel's parties are generally often underperformed their polling. What will happen this time? I mean, if they do as well as people think, and obviously the bar is very high, that's the tough thing. People will expect them to do outstandingly. All bets are off. It's conceivable that you'll have a reform-led government, and not a reform-led government after the next election. They're a contender. If they underperform, lots of wind will come out of his sail, and it'll look much less. Are polls overstating it? Is there too much hype? So, I mean, they couldn't be more crucial, these local elections, for the future of politics over the next 3 or 4 years.
And finally, who do you think should have a week off?
Kim Ledbetter. She's the MP who's been pushing the assisted dying bill through the Commons. It passed back at the end of last year, its second reading. Now it's gone through the committee stage where it had detailed, where you go through it line by line with a smaller committee. And what's happened there is the whole bill's beginning to unravel. She tried to pack the committee, pack the witnesses, all of that sort of thing. But some of the people are saying they'll no longer support it. Some of the promises, she had pledged that every assisted death would have to be confirmed by a High Court judge.
Yeah.
Now they realise that if that happened, the courts would be even more delayed. The thing would run on for years in the courts. So the bill's in poor shape. It should have gone back to Parliament for its report and third reading, for the whole House of Commons to have their say again this coming Friday. But they've now delayed it to at least the 16th of May. And obviously the reason they've delayed it is that she's worried. If she thought she'd get it through on Friday, it'd be going ahead on Friday, because you want to get it through the Commons as early as you can, so you've got time to get it through the Lords.
And just in terms of that, how much of this is also political? I mean, I know obviously it's a free vote in terms of the assisted dying bill, and as you say, they've removed the High Court judge and they've replaced it with a panel of experts, lawyers, social workers, psychiatrists, and so on. Tensions running very high on both sides, I think, is fair to say.
I think you're right, yeah. It's an issue raising lots of passions. Clearly, she's lost support. If it does go through, it'll go through with a smaller margin. But you're probably right that MPs don't want this to happen just before a local election. I mean, it isn't particularly... It sort of would give a very high profile. People could see how their MP voted. Yeah. And I don't think that's probably something they'd welcome at all.
No. I think you're right. Michael, always good to talk to you. Thanks ever so much for your time. Michael Moschbacher, Associate Editor at The Telegraph. Let's take a break. After the break, it's everyone's favourite royal correspondent. Yes, it is. Rupert Bell will be joining me to talk about all the latest royal news. This is Talk.
This very nice woman doesn't want to have her name revealed because she's got a sort of senior post in Glasgow, goes cross-country skiing, flies from Edinburgh to Oslo, got a perfectly valid passport, but gets to Oslo airport, and the Norwegian police do not understand the passport rules. They frisk her, they fingerprint her, they detain her, and then they deport her. And finally, yesterday, they got round to saying, not sorry, but a procedural error was made.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 9:24. Hi, David. I'm watching The Great Show. That's very sweet. Andy Williams, thank you very much. The idiots shouting trans rights in Palestine are ignorant. Yeah. And delusional. I just finished working for a Palestinian NGO, and one of the program managers who received the humanitarian medal from King Charles said that the Palestinians would kill all gay and LGBTQI people if they come to Palestine. I asked him if he was happy for queers for Palestine, and he said, of course I'm not. It's not acceptable, and they should all be killed. A despicable attitude, and I am a parent with a gay son, and I found the common attitude amongst Palestinians absolutely abhorrent. Keep up the great work in the shows. That's a really good message, Andy. Thank you for that. I just don't understand how you can have a group of people who advocate gay rights shouting Palestinian gays. It's an oxymoron. Happy Easter. Happy Easter to you all at Talk. Thank you. Have a fantastic day. Keep up the super job of speaking sense for the forgotten majority. That's Gavin Blackburn. He sent me a little chicken and egg. Thank you very much. David, surely the trans people who made death threats against the women who won in court should be fast-tracked into prison, just like the lady called Lucy who made a general threat after the riot. These threats are worse, though, because they're directly personal. I agree. Just unacceptable. How do they think they're above the law? Hi, David. To every one of the idiots saying these men should be in our safe women-only spaces, when just look at how much they hate us, keep them out. So sickened. Plus, my useless MP won't ask any questions I've asked, and I have asked a few. Yeah, that's really interesting. I was listening to someone else who was saying they keep writing to their MP and no... oh, I know, it was a lady who called in yesterday, wasn't it? She said she's written to the MP 5 times and the MP hasn't bothered to answer. That's not acceptable, because the MP is there because you voted for them. Good morning, David. This is Peter. Anyone damaging or defacing public statues should feel the full force of the law, such as it is, but I doubt the trans thugs will be punished. Once you let these thugs get away with these crimes, more will think they can do it too. Also, the same is true in Bristol. Yeah, I agree. Totally. Richie in Sussex. Hi, David. The gender ruling, all those disgusting people sending this hate mail and with hateful plaques that the demos must be arrested, they must be prosecuted, they should be locked up. It's disgusting behaviour. A woman is a person born female. There are no two ways about it. Quite right. Keep those messages coming in. Also, I'm asking this morning, who do you think is the most trustworthy? Is it Zelensky or Putin? And if the US does pull out... then does it run the risk of being accused of being a bystander in the process, or indeed, even worse, a cheerleader for Russia? The number 0344 499 1000. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can message us on X as well at talkTV. But now it's time for Rupert's Royal Roundup.
Rupert's Royal Roundup.
Good morning, Rupert.
Happy Easter, David.
Happy Easter, young man. Yes, to you too. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Very good, very good.
I mean,
yep.
Yeah, I mean, Easter is a really important holiday in this country, and you know, it's nice to be able to say Happy Easter to everyone. It brings me rather nicely to the King's message at Easter. I have had a lot of messages saying people were not very happy with the King's message.
Well, yes, because it's sort of... He is the head of the Anglican Church, And, well, this is one of the accusations often led at the king, that he's sometimes, he wants to be king of all faiths. Well, just from a sort of state point of view and sort of the way the Constitution works, he is the head of the Anglican Church. So it is, for him, the most significant. But and he is a man of really strong faith, but obviously he wants to feel that he has to reach out, and that's one of the accusations that's often led at the king. It is actually quite interesting when you look at the sort of, well, it's when we see at Christmas they all turn up at Sandringham and we get the sort of photo opportunity. Easter, the second most important Christian celebration in the calendar, Easter Sunday, where's Prince William? He's in Amner Hall. Will he be seen as the future head of the Anglican Church at a service today? Now, I know he's on his holidays with his children, but then you could say that about the Christmas holidays. So you've got to look at, it's quite a balancing act. And obviously no doubt we'll see the king later today going to a service, I assume in Windsor, I think, today. But, Prince William is not in Windsor. He has gone to his home in Norfolk. He's obviously been skiing as well in Courchevel. He was at the football earlier in the week. So it is something that marrying between his state responsibilities and his family responsibilities. And where does Easter fit in that? And could there be accusations, well, why hasn't he not even been seen just going in for an hour into Sandringham Church? I don't know. So that'll be an interesting one to see if he does later on turn up.
And no sign of the other one. What's that other one called? Oh, Harry.
Harry. Well, maybe he'll be going to church in Montecito. I don't know. Right. But clearly, yes, it's been an interesting week for those two as well. But from a sort of British royal family and part of their role within this country, you cannot forget that they are head of the Anglican Church.
That's the point. And I think the thing is that I get the point that the king wants to be inclusive and he wants to be defender of all faiths, which is fine. He is head of the Church of England. And I just think he sometimes forgets that. And whoever's writing those speeches needs to just be very mindful that there are people in this country who are Christian, who are looking to him as the head of the Church of England, and they want to have a bit more support and love.
Well, maybe that's actually lots of people feel within this country that the Christian faith gets neglected, full stop.
I would agree.
Are politicians coming out in great numbers wishing everybody a happy Easter? I mean, those are some of the things that you might be saying. So it is, we are a Christian country by definition. And with our royal family, they're part of going through history, religion, and the Anglican Church. Well, obviously Henry VIII had a view on that back in the day, changed it from... He certainly had a view when his marriage went a bit wrong. But anyway, we digress. But the fact is we are that is part of the royal family's duty, is head of the church. And I suppose you would say promoting Christian faith. I mean, but it is a difficult one.
Well, is it? Did he have to write this paragraph? The love he showed was when he walked the earth reflected the Jewish ethic of caring for the stranger and those in need, a deep human instinct echoed in Islam. Did he have to put that?
Well, again, you see, it's all part of trying to sort of balance, but actually, the sentiment of most religions at times is good, but for the king, he wants to be the defender of all faiths, as you say, and that is the balancing act that he's got to negotiate.
But we're celebrating Easter.
Well, therein lies the point, and sometimes, this is what people, the Christian faith, many people might say, gets ignored and is seen as almost the weakest religion.
But also, if the other religions don't celebrate Easter, then we shouldn't be mentioning them, should we?
In theory, you're probably right there, David.
I'm definitely right.
Yeah, well, it's a Christian celebration. It's that Jesus rose today from the dead. That's what we're celebrating today, and it gets lost in Christmas has probably got the message has got lost there. What that's about, and Christmas is about chocolates and eggs. But what's it got to do with the Christian faith. And that's something for the king to actually analyse and say, right, where do I go and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. So that might be perceived by many as a little bit of a misstep.
I think you need to ring him and tell him that I need to advise him on some of these messaging that clearly is far wide of the point. Rupert, we need to go to a break. I'll come back to you straight after this break. Rupert will return. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, I forgot to put my hat back on for Easter. Right, I said Rupert will return. It sounds like a part of a trilogy, Rupert. Rupert Bell, our royal correspondent, joins us. Do you like my hat, Rupert?
Well, I thought we were on a religious theme. I'm not sure what the theme...
No, I've done that bit now.
Okay, fine. Well, yeah, well, you've now gone full Easter Bunny on us, right? Okay.
You should have seen Charlie Rowley earlier.
Right. Well, I was that something to behold?
Yes, he had ears.
Right. Well, very good. Well, it's a fetching number. Were you up all night? Were you up all night making that, David?
Yes, I was with my sewing machine. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
So let's just move on. And there is a story, this is in the Daily Mail, the hidden meaning behind the royal family's matching green outfits. The royal family presented a powerful display of unity on Easter Sunday last year because they were wearing green. What?
Yeah, what? I don't know. What does green have? Is there some theory of...
well, apparently, I don't know, it says here it's meant to reflect resilience, solidarity and strength. I don't know. How much do you think... I mean, when green, apparently, the broader symbolism means... You should know this, Rupert. You're wearing green. Hope, healing, renewal and growth.
Well, I can... Look, the royal family, and bearing in mind last year, was quite a significant moment at Easter when you think that it was only a few weeks after both the King and the Princess of Wales had been diagnosed with cancer, and there needed to be a great show of unity. So if green... let's be honest, the royal family, everything is planned to the finest detail. So what you're wearing, what you're doing, what's the look. So when you're going on a visit somewhere, what's appropriate for that occasion. So every detail is analysed and made to... So perhaps there was some deliberate policy. Find your green coat or whatever you've got to hand, because it was a turbulent Easter last year. Because at that stage the Princess of Wales was in her very early stages. The King was finding a way to sort of get the show back on the road, and there was a lot of neat support from the rest of the royal family to get back out there. The Queen, in particular, getting out there to make sure she was seen in in a visible fashion, and that the royal family was doing what it wants. Because one of the things they always say, we have to be seen, and that has always been a mantra, because we've got to prove that we have a purpose within British society. And as we come back to, the Easter service is something that is considered important.
Absolutely right. Now, let's move on to my favourite couple, Meghan Markle. She's been accused of ripping off British authors' book series for a feminist Netflix shows after the writer has spotted striking similarities between her character and the Duchess's animation. Tell us more.
Well, Mel Elliott is a children's author and illustrator, reasonably successful. Pearl with the Power is the books that Mel Elliott has written, which I believe have been reasonably successful. I'm clearly not the target market for them. However, of course, Meghan did plan a book called Pearl, and it was supposed to be in development with Netflix, but mysteriously was dropped. Even Elton John was involved with it, David Furnish, but as part of the $100 million deal, it was dropped. And Mel Elliott wrote to Meghan's people and Netflix saying, what's going on here? And she says, never heard anything back. But it is one of the things that does seem to be levelled at Meghan, that there is, various things, even As Ever, the brand that she's launched. There are people who have said, look, I've got a fashion brand called As Ever. And, she does seem to get herself into hot water now. As Mel Elliott says, I don't know whether she's read it, but one of the things she says, the coincidences do seem uncanny. But, if there are lots of people maybe advising her who somewhere in the subconscious, it's a bit like music, someone saying that they claim that I wrote that song. How do you... So it's... How do you prove that? But obviously it is interesting that the project didn't actually see the light of day from Meghan's perspective for reasons that we're not 100% clear, but it has proved how hard it is for Meghan and Harry to make that Netflix deal work. And you'd have to say
No, I was going to say Mel Elliott is actually from Hastings. And then she'd written these books, Pearl Power. She got to the book 3, and then, of course, she sent that lawyer letter to... I mean, I'm just adding fuel to the fire here, but she then sent the letter from the lawyers to the Duchess Care of Archwell. As you say, heard nothing back. But she says there are striking similarities in these works. How do I put this nicely? The ventures that Meghan seems to embark upon seem to always have an involvement by maybe just taking inspiration from other things.
Yes. Well, I mean, but as most people do sort of lean on experiences, isn't that, but in her case, there does seem to be, the As Ever, sometimes it just seems that trouble follows her in one way or another. And in even her latest documentary, people are saying, well, it's copying other people and is very derivative. It was pretty ordinary. And then her podcast as well. And look, she's trying to make her way and make money. Whether it be by getting commission off items sold via the Shop Me website and various other means, and obviously monetizing some of the food that she is promoting in As Ever, the strawberry spread or raspberry spread.
Well, how much was that? 16 quid, wasn't it, for a pot?
Well, I think the honey was 20 quid and I think the 11 quid, but it's all about the packaging, David.
Oh, and the sprinkles, Rupert, and the sprinkles.
Yeah, and the elevating of that packaging to then use it. You could use the jar for putting pens in. But it's all about elevating the experience. So she does, look, she's trying to, she has every right to try and make a commercial venture successful. But obviously there's always the accusations that she's still hanging on to the Duchess of Sussex title. A lot of it's branded and promoted with that, using that title, but her Britishness, which, as I've often said, she doesn't want to embrace anyway. So she's always, and this is the problem, and maybe even Harry's feeling it, she has got an insatiable desire to make money and try and live a billionaire and celebrity lifestyle, whereas Harry has had everything, the ultimate boy with a silver spoon, has suddenly now got to find a way of earning a living. And he's actually, the big wide world is proving a rather fraught with difficulties for him personally. Because actually, when you think about it, in the royal family, whatever member of the royal family, however good intentions, everything gets done for you. Even William and Catherine, William's, now he's, interestingly, has given Jason Nuff the job as running Earshot, who was, of course, communications secretary for Harry and has got a very close relationship with William. But my point being is they get things done, comes around them. They're there to serve. People do it for them. Harry now is in the wild west of having now to try and hasn't got the support network of the royal family, and the only person who can drive it is him. And it's not so easy. And Meghan has clearly, in her eyes, her own agenda, which is to try and make as much money as is possible through her ventures.
I mean, the Daily Mail is reporting it, that Sussexes are in crisis over the clashing goals because, as you say, she wants to be a billionaire and Harry hasn't. That's not even anywhere on his radar. Are they in crisis?
How do we know? Obviously, there's a book, Tom Bower, the much-respected royal author, does seem to have an in. But it's interesting, he does say, look, he's not denying her right to make money. But for Harry, I think it really is reflecting, and we can see it, that the things just seem to be unravelling, whether it be the Centre Barley, the court case, and suddenly he's harking back. But he wants to build bridges. But I can assure you, the royal family, particularly his brother, has no desire to open the hand of friendship at this stage, because there's been so much bad blood from the Sussexes side and with everything else that's going on, William is not prepared to put the energy into it. So that's why Harry feels incredibly rudderless at the moment and has got to find a sense of purpose. Whereas at least Meghan, for all her faults you might think about what she's doing, she is at least trying to do things, whether it be the podcast, dreadful, the programme, dreadful, but that's just my views. I'm not, it's
what do you really think?
Obvious. Well, you never know. I'm not, for me, they just didn't work, and but a podcast. But she's got every right to try and find a way to make money. It just feels at times a little bit tacky, her need and striving for this, needing to be the centre of attention, and that's proving to be her undoing in the eyes of a lot of people. But she has every right, just like all of us, to go and make money.
Yes. How long have they got together, do you think?
I am no marriage guidance counsellor. I have no counsellor. I have no idea. Look, no one wants to see a breakup of a marriage. So I would hope they've got 2 children, and you'd hope that they, for the sake of the children, that if there are issues, then like most couples, well, no, they've been married now 7 years, so we're probably into the 7-year itch territory, aren't we? 2018. Don't you know about the 7-year itch, David?
Well, I do. That's why I'm looking at you and saying, ooh.
But I'm sure there's not. But that's what, it's just, but I'm sure I'm not saying.
I'm going to say Rupert Bell started that rumour that he's got a 7-year itch.
No. But they've been more married in 2018. I think they are now trying to work out how they go forward. And it's a crossroads moment. And for Harry, he's got to get a grip. He's obviously going to be waiting on this court ruling. I don't think he's busting a gut to come back to this country, even whatever the ruling is, because I don't think Meghan's got any desire to rush back and see her family. That's why I feel that Harry is the rudderless one. He is cast asunder from his family and maybe not have as many of his old friends around to just shoot the breeze with. And he may be ultimately, yes, you have support from Meghan and he's got his children, but ultimately people need a network of friends. And maybe he doesn't have a group of really strong friends with him in California. But I do not wish that marriage ill in terms of it coming to an end, because no one wants to see that. No. And if it does, my goodness me, it will be complicated.
Crikey, yes, I hadn't even thought about that. Rupert, thank you so much. I wish you a very happy Easter indeed. I really appreciate it. That's Rupert Bell, Talk's royal correspondent there with all the latest royal news. Lots of messages coming in. Hi, David, your shows are just brilliant. That's very kind, thank you. I don't know how you stay so upbeat and positive when you have to deal with all the stupid, unbelievably negative stuff going on due to the total mismanagement of this country. Will the EDI and trans rights people ever give up and leave the rest of us alone? don't. Will the penny ever drop for Millipede and the net zero zealots? Will Starmer ever do something for the indigenous people here? Almost all of the 646 MPs who are not reform seem to support net zero, and we just can't bring themselves to say that they don't. We are doomed. Please don't give up. Mike in Whitney, thank you. That's very good. Mike in Whitney, thank you for that. Kenny in Edinburgh, one of our regulars, good morning to you. Hi, David. Meghan Markle isn't feminist or anything-ist, apart from Meghanist. There can be no doubt about that. Are you saying she's self-serving? That's what you're saying there. David, fewer than 700,000 people attend Church of England services each week. That's less than 1% of the population and considerably fewer than attend professional football matches. So the role of King Charles as the head of the Anglican Church is a minor part of his job. The truth is we're not a religious country. Please stop pretending we are. Most of us only celebrate Easter because we get a few days off work. I am going to push back on that because lots of people may have faith, but they don't necessarily go to a place of worship. Just something for you to think about. And one more, Margaret Graham, I love you very much. David, I love your hat. It's absolutely gorgeous. Happy Easter. And to you. Right, time for a break. After the break, you'll go your thoughts, calls and messages. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning. The German capacity for refugees is exhausted. We've taken in millions of people from Syria, Afghanistan and Ukraine. So we often think that the illegal migration problem is our problem. It's not. But this also then begs the question about if they're seeking asylum, as they will, because geographically you will go to Greece, say. Yeah. You then move to Germany. You don't like Germany. The reason they come here is because we give them five-star hotels and then we hotel them and we give them food and all the rest of it. Why would you go anywhere else?
Exactly.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Talk. Final part of Weekend Breakfast, 9:51, Sunday, April the 20th. So many voice notes coming in. Let's go through some of these now. The first one is from Anne on trans women. Good morning, Anne.
Good morning. A great show as usual. I'm a woman, and if I went to a doctor for an intimate smear test and thought it was a woman and then found out it was a man, I think I'd be suing for sexual assault. Thank you. Keep up the good work.
It's interesting, isn't it? There's no legal right, by the way. if you're a woman, you cannot say, I demand to see a female doctor. You can ask to see a female doctor, but you're right. It's kind of like, if you think you're being examined by a female doctor and you're not, then that's misrepresentation, isn't it? Another one from Michelle on trans ideology. Good morning to you.
Morning, David. It's Michelle from Bristol. I can tell you how we got here. We got here because of people, men and women, who decided to be kind. And being kind then allowed men to do whatever they wanted. It's now being read out in the Supreme Court that women are biological women and not women who say that they feel or think that they're women. And it's absurd that it's taken the Supreme Court to read that out.
I agree. It's absolutely unbelievable that it took a Supreme Court to decide that a woman was a biological woman. Couldn't agree more. Next one, Andy has left a voice note on protests against women's rights. Good morning, Andy.
Morning, David. Andy from Surrey here. So let's get this right. They want to go on a march against women's rights, and yet they want to pretend to be a woman. Loving the show. Cheers.
Yeah. That's right. You got that in one. Next one, we've got... thank you very much, by the way. Damon on trans ideology. Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. David. Damon from Wigan. I just want to say one thing on these trans rights and trans activists. Why is it always seems to be that men want to enter female spaces? For myself personally, I've got no objections if they go through the proper procedures and the treatments and the medication and everything else and become a woman in that way. But when you've got a man who can just throw a dress on and jump in a woman's space and say, I'm a man, I am a woman, that's dangerous to me, because something's going to go seriously wrong. And when it does, who's going to be held accountable then?
Well, that's the point, isn't it? And we had this argument yesterday saying, well, what if you're a trans woman, when do you become a trans woman? Is it when you put the skirt on, or do you have to have hormone treatment and your penis removed? Does that make you a woman? And then how would you enforce that? So if you then go into a female changing room, what are you going to do? Show and tell? I mean, none of that makes any sense. So I really welcome the ruling there as well. Lots of messages coming in, lots of calls as well. Let's take a quick call. Claire is on the line from the Wirral. Ooh, very posh. Good morning.
Good morning, David. Good to talk to you.
And you.
I disagree. I was listening to yourself and Charlie.
Yes.
Talking earlier on this morning about Starmer having no political stance.
Yes.
Or ideology. I totally disagree with both of you.
Come on, then.
I think he has more of a political stance than any of our political leaders, even Churchill, even, Maggie Thatcher, because his ideology, you see, Maggie Thatcher and Churchill believed in democracy.
Yes.
Starmer does not believe in democracy. He's a closet Corbynite. The question is, did Corbyn step aside, or was he pushed? I think he stepped aside for Starmer. And Starmer, he has this stance, he has this political intent, and he wants to demoralise and repopulate our country and change our demographics. And we will become the first Western Islamic state, I'm afraid. And I think until we actually realise...
Not if it stopped.
Sorry?
Not if it stopped.
Well, will it stop? And look at the way that our country has become.
I agree with you. But the one thing I'd throw back at you is that in terms of a government, I have never seen a government that has managed to fail so fantastically successfully so quickly.
Yes, but he's basically, got us under his thumb, hasn't he? And he knew his intent right from the word go. And then when, of course, the riots started, we haven't got free speech anymore, people are afraid, to make a move. Let's put it that way. They're afraid to make a move because He's got us under his thumb, but he's very, very a scary person. And I'm sorry, it's Easter, and it's a shame to ruin Easter. But this is the way that things are going, and we've really, really got to wise up to the way that this country is going.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a great call, Claire. Thank you. I wish you a very happy Easter as well. I have great faith that actually the country will sort itself out. I think the scales are falling from people's eyes. I think they can see what is going on in this country, and it will be interesting to see what transpires over the next couple of weeks, to say the least. Peter Cardwell.
Hello,
good morning.
David Bill. Happy Easter.
Look, I've got an egg.
Have you? Ooh, it's more than I've got.
Do you want one?
Yeah, go on then.
Here we are, then. Here's an egg. This is very kind. That's from Ted.
Very kind.
The producer.
Thank you, Ted.
We've had an amazingly fun show, and good show, and wide-ranging show. What have you got coming up?
Well, hopefully another one.
Very good, very good. It won't be as good, obviously.
I don't know, obviously. I don't know if you've seen this ludicrous footage of Palestinian rights activists saying that the Palestinian cause and trans rights are like the same.
Same, yeah.
Yeah, try going to Gaza whilst being a trans woman or a trans man and see how you get on.
Esme says, great show, just thought, can we actually gather all the trans-Palestinian protesters, ship them all over to Palestine for a month and see how many survive to come back? It would save us having to take up space in our prisons. It might actually give them a taste of what the Palestinian views are, especially regarding gay and trans people.
I mean, I don't want anybody to die, obviously.
Do you actually think they know what they're chanting?
No, of course they don't. Of course they don't. No, they wouldn't know. They wouldn't know the first thing about the issues they're talking about. We're talking about the Middle East. We're talking about the very sad news that apparently there's no vegan stir fry in prison.